Story 1. After a fight, my fiance texted, "I'm staying at my ex's place tonight. Deal with it." So I dealt with it. The next morning, I watched her lose her mind. Sup Reddit. From where do I start? Lol. This one is a real mess. I need you to grab some popcorn and enjoy. I'm 29 male, a union electrician. Good money. Own my apartment downtown. Drive a decent truck. Been with Brianna, 26, for almost 3 years. She's a content marketing manager. Makes decent cash, attractive, and for the longest time, we were that couple everyone envied. The relationship was solid for the first 2 years. She had her own place across town. We split everything 50-50. She never acted like I owed her anything. Independent, funny, great in bed. We'd roast each other constantly, watch football together. She'd even help me move furniture without complaining about breaking a nail. I thought I'd found my ride or die. So naturally, I proposed. Took her to that fancy steakhouse she loved. Got down on one knee, the whole thing. Spent 3 months' salary on the ring because she'd been dropping hints about wanting something that would make her friends jealous. She cried, said yes, and posted 17 Instagram stories about it. I was on top of the world. That's when everything went to heck. It's like the ring flipped some switch in her brain. Suddenly she's talking about our money instead of splitting bills. Started expecting me to pick up every check because that's what fiancés do. Stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, started treating my apartment like a hotel where she happened to crash rent-free. Even had the nerve to suggest I should get a bigger place for when we have kids. Started talking about how I should invest in our future by upgrading my truck to something more family-friendly. Translation, she wanted me to take on a $60,000 car payment so she could look good in the school pickup line. But the real poison was her best friend Betty. Single, bitter, works some dead-end admin job, and spends her free time destroying every relationship around her. Been Brianna's maid of honor since the engagement, and made it her personal mission to turn Brianna into some entitled princess. Every time Betty came over, I'd hear whispers in the kitchen over coffee. Then, Brianna would emerge with some new demand. "Betty says you should be paying for the entire wedding since you're the man. Betty thinks I deserve a bigger ring. Betty says I shouldn't have to work after we're married." Each conversation cost me more money and respect. The worst part, Betty would sit on my couch, drinking my soda, eating my food, and lecture me about how real men treat their women. This from someone who'd been single for 3 years and whose last boyfriend left her for her own cousin. I called it out directly. Told Brianna that Betty was toxic and trying to sabotage us because she couldn't stand seeing her friend happy. "You're being paranoid," Brianna said. "She just wants what's best for me." What's best for you is getting away from that bitter harpy before she ruins us." Betty overheard and smiled this fake sweet smile. "I just think Brianna deserves someone who treats her like a queen. If that threatens you, maybe ask yourself why." I wanted to tell her exactly what I thought, but I kept my mouth shut. Should have trusted my gut and ended it then. Should have seen the red flags when Brianna started nodding along instead of defending me. The breaking point came 6 weeks ago. Brianna announces she wants to go on a girls' trip to Miami with Betty and some other friends. Week-long party fest, bottle service every night, staying at some fancy resort. 2 months before our wedding. "It's my bachelorette party," she says. "My last chance to be wild before I settle down." You're not settling down. You're getting married. To me. There's a difference. You know what I mean. Don't be so dramatic. "No, I really don't know what you mean. Explain it." She got defensive. Said I was being controlling. That she deserved to have fun before real life started. Real life. Like our engagement was just some holding pattern before the prison sentence began. I told her absolutely not. Call me old school, but there's no way in heck my fiance was going to party in Miami clubs while I paid for wedding deposits and vendor contracts. That's when Betty chimed in from the couch. "See, Bree? I told you he'd try to control you. This is just the beginning." The fight that followed was nuclear. Brianna screaming about trust and freedom. Me pointing out that wanting to party like you're single while wearing my ring isn't about trust, it's about respect. Betty sitting there stirring the pot with little comments designed to escalate everything. "Fine," Brianna finally screamed. "If you don't trust me, maybe we shouldn't get married." Maybe we shouldn't. She went dead silent, like she expected me to grovel and apologize. When I didn't, she grabbed her purse and stormed out. Didn't come home that night, or the next. I figured she was at Betty's place, waiting for me to come crawling back with an apology and permission for her little Miami mess. Instead, I went to work, hit the gym, ordered takeout, and slept like a baby. If she wanted to test me, she picked the wrong guy. 3 years as an electrician teaches you patience and problem solving. Wednesday night, I found out exactly where she'd been staying. Wednesday night, I'm on the couch watching the Celtics game and actually enjoying the peace and quiet. No Betty whispering poison in the kitchen. No passive-aggressive comments about how I never do anything romantic anymore. Just me, a soda, and basketball. Then my phone buzzes. Text from Brianna. I'm at Dean's place tonight. Deal with it. Dean, her ex from college. The one she claims is just a friend, but gets weird whenever his name comes up. The one who randomly texts her whenever we have a fight. I'd met him once, typical finance bro type who still thinks he's in a fraternity. I stared at that message for a full minute. Read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't seeing things. My first instinct was to blow up her phone. Demand explanations. Drive over there and drag her butt home. That's what the old me would have done. That's what she expected me to do. Instead, I set the phone down and cracked another can. Took a long drink and really thought about what just happened. This woman, who's wearing my $8,000 ring, just announced she's spending the night at her ex-boyfriend's place and told me to deal with it. After letting her toxic friend spend months undermining our relationship, the disrespect was breathtaking, but it was also clarifying, like someone had just shown me exactly who they really were. I finished my drink, turned off the game, and got to work. See, here's something important about my apartment. It's mine. My name on the lease, my security deposit, my furniture, my everything. I pay $2,400 a month for a 1-bedroom downtown because I can afford it, and I like living alone. Brianna moved in 8 months ago and contributed to groceries and utilities. That's it. She was basically a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. Time for checkout. I started packing her stuff. Not angry, not rushed. Her clothes, makeup, that collection of plants she was always fussing over. Her books, everything. Used good boxes from recent Amazon deliveries. Even bubble wrapped the fragile stuff because I'm not a complete jerk. The whole time, my phone stayed silent. No follow-up texts, no apology, no just kidding. Nothing. She really meant it. 3.5 hours later, every single thing she owned was packed and loaded in my truck. The funny part? I knew exactly where Dean lived. Brianna had me drop her off there once for some group study session a few months back. Told me not to come up because Dean's roommate doesn't like strangers. Should have been a red flag then. Made 4 trips between midnight and 2 a.m. Stacked everything neatly outside Dean's apartment door like a professional moving service. Even left a note. Since you're staying here anyway, Jackson. Drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. Went to Home Depot first thing in the morning and bought smart locks. Installed them myself while drinking coffee and listening to podcasts. Took my time, did it right. Went to work like it was any other Thursday. Because it was. Around lunchtime, my boy Riley texted me. He lives in Dean's complex, works from home doing freelance graphic design. Has 0 filter and the sharpest tongue in the city. Yo, just saw some chick loading boxes into an Uber outside Dean's place. She looked rough. Is everything good? I sent him screenshots of the text exchange. Holy crap, dude. That's some next-level disrespect. Yep, so I dealt with it. Savage. Want me to keep an eye on the situation over here? This could get interesting. Do whatever you want. Not my circus anymore. My work crew got wind of the situation by Friday. These guys don't mess around when it comes to relationship advice. You kicked her out for one text? Asked Danny, our lead installer. She told me to deal with her staying at her ex's place. So I dealt with it. Darn right, said Big Sean, nodding approvingly. That's some alpha move right there. Most guys would have gone crying to her door. My wife tried that kind of power play once, Danny added. I shut it down quickly. You let them get away with that stuff. They'll walk all over you forever. But I was definitely curious about how this would play out. And Riley never disappoints with his intel. Thursday night, I slept like a baby. First full night's sleep I'd had in weeks without someone sighing dramatically every 5 minutes about wedding planning stress, or how her friends' engagements were so much more romantic. Friday morning, 7:45 a.m. sharp. Sounds like someone's trying to break down my door. Look through the peephole. It's Brianna, looking like she'd slept in a dumpster. Hair everywhere. Yesterday's makeup streaked down her face, shaking with rage. Jackson! Open this door. My key doesn't work. I took my time making coffee first. French press, good beans, the whole ritual. Let her pound and scream for a good 5 minutes while I checked work emails. When I finally cracked the door, keeping the chain latched, she looked ready to commit murder. Morning, sunshine. Sleep well? What did you do to my key? Your key? That was my spare key that I let you borrow. I upgraded the locks. Only residents get the codes. I am a resident. Were, past tense. You moved out Wednesday night, remember? Dean's place? Her face went through this amazing transformation. Red to white to purple to a shade I didn't know existed. Like watching a mood ring have a seizure. You can't do this. I live here. I get mail here. You get packages here occasionally. Big difference. And you lived here as my guest, not as a tenant. It wasn't what you think. Dean's roommate was having a crisis and don't care. You made your choice. I made mine. Pretty simple transaction, really. Oh, where's all my stuff? Safe and sound outside Dean's door. Better hurry, though. Looks like it might rain. Weather app says 60% chance. That's when she completely lost her mind. Started screaming like a banshee, pounding on the door, demanding everything from lawyers to calling her daddy to ruining my life. The old lady from 4B opened her door to see what was happening, took one look at Brianna having her meltdown, and shook her head with this "I told you, son" expression. That lady never liked Brianna. Said she was too entitled for such a young woman. You psychopath! I have rights! I've been living here for 8 months! Now you're not. Have a great day, Brianna. Closed the door and put on noise-canceling headphones. Made breakfast while she continued her tantrum in the hallway. Scrambled eggs, fresh orange juice. 20 minutes later, silence. Looked out the peephole. She was gone. Riley called around noon, laughing his butt off. Dude, your ex showed up at Dean's with red eyes and mascara everywhere. Starts loading boxes into an Uber. But here's the kicker. Dean's got a girlfriend. Silence. What? Yeah, man, Jessica. She's been living there for 6 months. Apparently the roommate crisis was Jessica finding out some other chick had spent the night and was claiming to be Dean's friend who needed a place to crash. This kept getting better. So Jessica comes home from her night shift. She's a nurse. Finds your ex's stuff piled outside the door and Brianna inside making breakfast, like she owns the place. The screaming match could be heard 3 floors down. No way! Way! The building manager had to come up and sort it out. Dean's trying to explain to both women. Jessica's threatening to leave, and your ex is crying about being homeless. It was better than reality TV. Get this. Brianna actually tried to convince Jessica that she was Dean's emotional support friend and needed to stay for her mental health. Jessica told Brianna if she wasn't gone in 5 minutes, she was calling the cops. Where is she now? Betty picked her up in some beat-up car. But Jessica made Dean promise that if your ex shows up again, he's calling the cops. She doesn't play games. Smart woman. But I had a feeling this was just the beginning. Friday afternoon, I get a call from building security. Mr. Jackson, there's someone here claiming to be your fiancé who wants us to let her up. She's not my fiancé anymore? Don't let her up. She's, pretty upset about that. Making quite a scene in the lobby. Something about her rights and how you're stealing from her. Not my problem, thanks, Tony. But Saturday brought a whole new level of crazy that I wasn't prepared for. Saturday morning, I'm enjoying coffee and scrolling through my phone when Tony from building security calls. Jackson, you need to come down to the lobby. Now, your ex is here with some older guy and a middle-aged woman claiming they have legal rights to enter your apartment. Be right down! I throw on clothes and head downstairs. There's Brianna with her dad Richard and her mom Grace, looking like they're ready for war. Richard's holding a manila folder and wearing his "I mean business" expression. Grace is standing with her arms crossed, the "I want to speak to you" manager pose. Brianna's dressed up like she's going to court. Tony wouldn't let them up without my permission. Guy's a former Marine. Doesn't take crap from anyone. Richard starts immediately. Jackson, what's this nonsense about making my daughter homeless? Morning, Richard. Grace. I nod to her. I didn't make anyone homeless. I ended our engagement after she chose to spend the night at her ex's place and told me to deal with it. Grace jumps in before Richard can respond. You can't just throw people out. She has rights. She's been living here. As my guest, Grace. Never signed a lease, never paid rent, never established legal residency. That's ridiculous. She was practically your wife. I pull out my phone, show them the screenshot. I'm at Dean's place tonight. Deal with it. That's not how wives talk to husbands. Richard's eye twitches. Grace's mouth drops open. She explained that it was innocent, Richard says. You're overreacting. That's not explaining, Richard. That's a declaration of war. Grace tries the guilt angle. She made one mistake. One text. You're destroying her life over nothing. She destroyed her own life with that text. I just responded accordingly. Richard's folder comes out. We're prepared to file suit for illegal eviction and theft. Please do. I'd love to show a judge the text where your daughter announced she was staying elsewhere and the building's security footage of me peacefully moving her belongings. Also happy to provide documentation that she was never on any lease, never received mail here, and never established legal residency. The folder goes back down. Richard realizes they're screwed. That's when Brianna tries the manipulation route. Tears start flowing, voice gets all breathy and pathetic. Baby, please, this is crazy. I made one mistake, one text. We can fix this. We just did fix it. You're free to stay wherever you want, and I'm free from someone who thinks deal with it is appropriate communication with their fiancé. I didn't mean it like that. Right. Grace is getting red-faced. You're being cruel. She's devastated. Look at her. I looked at her, and she looked like a snotty raccoon having a meltdown. Too late. People make mistakes. Some mistakes have consequences, Grace. This is what consequences look like. Grace turns to Tony, our security guard. You heard him. He's being abusive. You need to let us up there. Tony, stone-faced. Ma'am, I heard a man exercise his legal right to remove someone from his own apartment. If you keep yelling, I'm calling the police. Richard realizes they're not getting anywhere. Come on, Brianna. We'll figure something else out. As they're leaving, I hear Grace hiss, I can't believe you're not making him give her money. And Brianna's response was, he's supposed to take care of me. That's what men do. The look of pure shock on Richard's face when he heard his daughter's entitlement was worth everything I'd been through. But Sunday brought the nuclear option, and that's when I stopped finding any of this funny. Sunday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from random numbers. Not Brianna. I blocked her after the lobby confrontation. These were from mutual friends, all asking the same question. What the heck is happening? Checked social media. Oh, it was a masterpiece. Brianna had posted this 3-paragraph sob story on Facebook about being suddenly abandoned by someone she trusted completely. How I'd become controlling and abusive after the engagement. How she was homeless and terrified because of my violent tendencies. Even threw in some nonsense about me monitoring her phone and isolating her from friends. Real victim here. Betty was leading the charge in the comments like some deranged PR manager. I always knew he had anger issues, and Brianna is so brave for speaking out. And Jackson fooled us all, but I never trusted him. The echo chamber was in full effect, with her flying monkeys calling me every name in the book. But here's where Betty made her first mistake. She started her own Facebook post about supporting survivors and how she'd always seen the red flags with me. Posted photos from our double dates with captions like, I should have protected her from this monster. I posted exactly one response. A screenshot of her text and my simple okay reply. Nothing else. Let the evidence speak for itself. The tide started turning in the comments. My friends asking for context. Her friends demanding I tell the truth about what I'd done to her. Then Jessica, Dean's girlfriend, dropped a nuclear bomb. Is this why you showed up at my apartment with boxes claiming to be Dean's girlfriend? While I was standing right there, after spending the night uninvited? Post deleted within 10 minutes. But screenshots live forever, and about 50 people had already captured it. Betty went full attack dog on her own Facebook, posting about how I was manipulating the narrative and gaslighting everyone. The girl was unhinged. Quick pause, fellas. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Thanks so much for your support. All right, back to the drama. Monday brought the wellness check. 2 cops at my door looking bored out of their minds. Sir, we got a call about someone threatening self-harm at this address. Let me guess. My ex-fiancé called it in. We can't say who called, but yeah. Invited them in, made coffee, showed them the text exchange, explained the timeline. So she announced she was staying at her ex's place, you packed her stuff and took it there, and now she's saying you're having a meltdown? That about sums it up, officers. Are you feeling okay? Any thoughts of hurting yourself or others? Officers, I haven't been this happy in months. Just annoyed that she's wasting your time and taxpayer resources with false reports. They documented it as a malicious call and warned me she might escalate. One of them even said, we see this a lot. X makes bad decisions, faces consequences, then tries to weaponize the system. Keep your documentation handy. Smart advice. Wednesday morning brought something that made me realize this wasn't just petty drama anymore. Credit monitoring alert on my phone. Attempted credit application using your social security number. Someone had tried to open a store credit card in my name. Failed because the phone number didn't match my file, but they had my SSN, birth date, and my old address from college. One guess who? I called the credit company immediately. They confirmed all the details. Attempted $2,000 limit card. All my personal information. Wrong phone number. Froze my credit across all 3 bureaus. Then I called the police. The officer taking my statement was the same one from the wellness check. Your ex-fiancée again? Yep, she's escalating. Identity theft's a felony, Jackson. This is serious now. No more games. Filed a formal report. Got a case number. The officer suggested I hire a lawyer and consider a restraining order. This won't be the last attempt. He was right. Thursday, I got notifications that someone was trying to reset my email password, my bank password, even my PlayStation account. All attempts were going to an email address I didn't recognize. Friday, Riley called with an update that had me seeing red. Dude, your psycho ex convinced Dean to let her stay just until she gets back on her feet. That was 3 weeks ago. She's completely taken over their apartment. What do you mean? Rearranged the furniture, threw away Jessica's stuff, keeps talking about how you're going to come to your senses and beg her to come back. She's completely delusional. The audacity was staggering. Jessica's ready to move out. Dean's terrified of both women at this point. Oh, and she tried to order $300 worth of groceries delivered to their place using your credit card. She what? Delivery guy showed up with bags of expensive stuff. Organic this, gluten-free that, the whole Whole Foods experience. Dean had no idea what was going on. When they called the number on the order, it was your card. Dean refused the delivery and reported it to the store. Another felony. Perfect. But wait, it gets better. She's been telling everyone in the building that Dean's her new boyfriend and they're working things out. Posted Instagram stories from his apartment talking about new beginnings and finding real love. Jessica saw them and went ballistic. That's when I decided it was time to go nuclear. But first, I had some business to take care of. Time to return that $8,000 ring. Monday morning, I hired Nora, a lawyer who specializes in harassment and cyberstalking cases. Found her through a buddy at work whose ex tried similar stuff. Cost me $3,500 up front. But after the credit card fraud attempt, I was done playing games. First thing she did was send cease and desist letters to Brianna, Richard, Grace, Betty, and every flying monkey who'd been harassing me. The letters were beautiful. Outlined everything from the false wellness check to the attempted identity theft. Made it clear that any further contact would result in immediate legal action. Most of Brianna's friends backed off immediately. Richard actually responded through his own lawyer with a formal apology, saying he was unaware of his daughter's escalating behavior and would ensure no further contact. Betty's response was priceless. This is harassment. Brianna's the victim here. Jackson is trying to silence us. Nora fired back with a 2-page letter explaining how criminal law works. Your client's friend has committed multiple felonies. Any further communication from you will be considered obstruction of justice and reported to the appropriate authorities. Radio silence after that. But before we move forward with prosecution, I had one more thing to handle. I asked her about the ring situation. In this state, if the engagement is broken by the recipient, the ring goes back to the giver. It's considered a conditional gift. Perfect. I still had the receipt, the appraisal, and the insurance documentation. Nora drew up a formal demand letter requiring Brianna to return the ring within 72 hours or face civil action for conversion and theft. The letter was delivered to Betty's apartment, where Brianna was still crashing. Tuesday, my phone exploded. Brianna had gotten a burner phone and was calling me from different numbers, screaming about how the ring was hers, and I had no right to take it back. You gave it to me! You can't just take it back because you're having a tantrum! Read the letter, Brianna. I'm not giving you anything. This ring is mine. I earned it. You earned it by telling me to deal with you staying at your ex's place? Interesting payment plan. That's when she really lost her mind. Started screaming about how she was going to destroy me, how she'd never give the ring back, how I was a psychopath for wanting it. See you in court then. Wednesday, Riley called with the play-by-play. Dude, your ex is having a complete meltdown over here. She's been screaming at Betty about the ring, crying, throwing things. Betty's getting sick of her nonsense. What do you mean? Apparently, Brianna's been treating Betty's place like a hotel, eating all her food, using her car without asking, bringing random dudes back for revenge hookups, leaving messes everywhere. Betty finally snapped and told her to grow up and handle her problems like an adult. Oh no, the sisterhood was cracking. Brianna started crying about how Betty was supposed to support her and be on her side. Betty told her that supporting someone doesn't mean enabling their delusions. They had a huge fight. Brianna stormed out and Betty changed her locks. Where's she staying now? Back with Mommy and Daddy. But here's the thing. Grace has been calling Betty, screaming about how she abandoned Brianna and ruined her life. Betty posted on Facebook telling Grace to control her psycho daughter before she ends up in jail. The house of cards was collapsing. Thursday brought news that made my day. The DA's office is moving forward with prosecution, Nora said. Multiple counts of identity theft, attempted fraud, filing false reports, and cyberstalking. They want her arrested. When? Tomorrow morning. And Jackson? She still hasn't returned the ring. That's another felony. Theft of property over $5,000. Christmas came early this year, but Friday brought something that made me realize this wasn't over yet. Friday morning, I'm having coffee when Nora calls. She's been arrested, multiple felony charges plus the ring theft. But Jackson, there's a problem. What? She claims the ring is lost, says she can't remember where she put it. Either she's lying or she sold it. Great. My investigator is checking local pawn shops and jewelry stores. If she sold it, that's another felony. Saturday, Riley called me laughing hard. Dude, you're not going to believe this. LMAO. 2 cop cars just pulled up to Betty's apartment complex. Your ex got arrested while she was there begging Betty to take her back. You can't be serious. She's screaming about how this is all your fault. Betty's standing in the doorway telling the cops she doesn't know her. Half the complex is outside watching the show. The mental image was perfect. They just put her in the car. She's still screaming. This is better than Netflix. Oh, and Grace showed up right as they were driving away. Started yelling at Betty about how this is her fault for abandoning Brianna. Betty told her to buzz off and slam the door. 2 hours later, she's been arrested and charged. Bail hearing is Monday, but with multiple felony counts and a pattern of escalating behavior, she'll likely be held until trial. And with her record, she could be looking at 3 to 5 years if convicted on all counts. The identity theft alone carries mandatory minimums in this state. The next day, word was already spreading through our mutual friend group. My buddy Chris called laughing. Dude, half the people at my bachelor party heard about Brianna getting arrested. Tommy said his girlfriend saw the mugshot on Facebook. Betty posted it with some sob story about the justice system failing women. Betty posted her mugshot? Yeah, but it backfired. Everyone's commenting about how crazy Brianna looks and asking what she actually did. Betty's trying to control the narrative, but people are Googling the charges. Identity theft, fraud, stalking. It's all public record now. Monday's bail hearing was a mess. Brianna showed up looking like she'd been living rough. Unwashed hair, wrinkled clothes, bags under her eyes. Her public defender argued for release on recognizance, claiming she was a young woman dealing with emotional trauma from an abusive relationship. Right. Young woman. The prosecutor laid out the timeline of escalating criminal behavior. False reports, identity theft, attempted fraud, harassment despite cease and desist orders, attempted employment sabotage, and theft of an $8,000 engagement ring. The judge looked at the evidence for about 30 seconds. Bail set at $50,000. Defendant is ordered to have no contact with the victim and to surrender her passport. Richard had to mortgage his house to get her out. I almost felt bad for the guy. Grace was in the courtroom, making snide comments loud enough for everyone to hear about how I was destroying an innocent girl's life. The bailiff had to tell her to be quiet twice. The restraining order hearing was even better. Brianna's lawyer tried the woman-scorned angle, claiming she was emotionally devastated and not thinking clearly. The judge wasn't buying it. 5-year restraining order granted. Any contact whatsoever results in immediate arrest and jail time. But here's the kicker. Word travels fast in the content marketing world. Getting arrested for cybercrimes when your job requires digital trust? That's career ending. She was fired before she even made bail. And with her criminal charges pending, she's basically blacklisted from the entire industry. No one's hiring someone facing felony cyberstalking charges. 3 months later, she'd moved back in with her parents in Ohio. At 26, living in her childhood bedroom, unemployed, facing felony charges, and still no ring. Nora's investigator found it at a pawn shop downtown. Brianna had sold it for $2,000 2 days after I kicked her out. We got it back, and now she's facing an additional charge for selling stolen property. Richard sent one final message through lawyers. A check for $6,200 to cover all the fraudulent charges and my legal fees. Included a note. I'm ashamed of my daughter's behavior and want to make this right. I kept the money. Richard was a decent guy who got stuck with a nightmare daughter and a wife who enabled her every tantrum. The trial was scheduled for 6 months out, but Brianna's lawyer pushed for a plea deal. 2 years probation, full restitution, mandatory anger management counseling, and the restraining order stays in effect. She took it rather than risk 5 years in prison. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 3 months into her probation, I started dating Leah, a veterinarian who owns her own practice. Smart, pays her own bills, and has never once told me to deal with anything. That's when Brianna's stalking and harassment kicked into high gear again. 6 months later, I'm doing great. Still in my apartment, picked up some overtime shifts that bumped my pay grade, and Leah and I are solid. The Brianna nightmare felt like ancient history until she found out about Leah through social media. Then the harassment started all over again. She created fake Instagram accounts to stalk Leah's veterinary practice page, leaving one-star reviews claiming Leah was unprofessional and stole someone's fiancé. Leah handled it like a champ, screenshotted everything, reported it to the platforms, and told me she wasn't going to let some pathetic ex control our relationship. But Brianna wasn't done. She started showing up at Leah's clinic, claiming she needed to discuss something important with her. Leah's receptionist recognized her from the photos I'd shown and called security every time. Then this happened. The breaking point came at our mutual friend Chris's wedding. I almost didn't go because there was a chance she might show up, but Leah convinced me we shouldn't let my psycho ex control our social life. Besides, she said, isn't she supposed to be on probation and banned from contacting you? Riley met us there. He'd been looking forward to this wedding for weeks, partly because he's friends with Chris, but mostly because he'd been hoping for exactly what ended up happening. The ceremony went fine. Cocktail hour was great. Good food, better drinks, people I hadn't seen in ages. I was finally relaxing when Riley grabbed my arm with this evil grin. Dude, don't look now. But guess who just stumbled in looking like a complete disaster? I looked anyway. There she was, weaving through the entrance in a wrinkled dress that looked like she'd slept in it, clearly intoxicated. Oh, this is about to be legendary, Riley said, pulling out his phone. I'm getting all of this. This is going straight to the group chat. Brianna spotted me across the room and made a beeline, knocking over a centerpiece and stepping on someone's foot along the way. Jackson! She slurred loud enough for the entire reception to hear. There you are! I knew you'd be here! Conversations died, heads turned, phones came out. The DJ actually turned the music down. Leave. There's a restraining order and you're violating your probation. Screw your restraining order. I came here to talk to you, to make you understand. Leah stepped closer to me, ready for whatever was about to happen. Security was already moving in our direction, but Riley held up a hand. He wanted to see this play out. Understand what? I kept my voice calm. That you made a mistake. That we belong together. I forgive you for everything. The arrest, the lawyers, all of it. We can start over. The delusion was unbelievable. She actually thought this was romantic. Brianna, we're done. We've been done for over a year. No, you're just being stubborn. And this. She glared at Leah with pure hatred. This is your pathetic rebound? Your downgrade? She's not even that pretty. That's when Riley stepped forward with the biggest grin I've ever seen. Oh, this is perfect. Brianna, meet Leah. She's a veterinarian who owns her own practice, drives her own car, and has never once committed identity theft. Crazy standards, right? The crowd was eating this up. Someone started live streaming on Instagram. Brianna's face went red. Screw you! You don't know what you're talking about. She's a witch who stole my man. Your man? Riley laughed. Lady, you told him to deal with you staying at your ex's place. That's not how you keep a man. That's how you get screwed. Right on cue, 2 security guards appeared. Ma'am, you need to leave immediately. No, I'm not done. Jackson, please, you have to listen to me. I love you. She tried to grab my arm. I stepped back. Security moved in. This is harassment. This is illegal. I'll sue everyone here. With what lawyer? Riley called out as they started escorting her toward the exit. Didn't Daddy already spend his retirement money bailing you out of jail? The crowd was loving it. Even the bride and groom were watching from the head table, trying not to laugh. As they dragged her toward the door, she made one last desperate play. Jackson, remember what we had. Remember how good it was before you ruined everything. Riley cupped his hands around his mouth. Yeah, the best part is when he ruined everything. The entire reception erupted. People were recording, laughing, applauding. Someone started chanting, "Deal with it! Deal with it!" Her final scream as security pushed her out the door. I hate all of you! Leah's UGLY and Jackson's a loser. Riley's parting shot. If that were true, you wouldn't be here begging for him back, sweetie. The whole thing was on social media within minutes. Number sign deal with it started trending locally with the caption, "When keeping it real goes wrong." By Monday morning, it had gone viral with over 200,000 views. Chris, the groom, found me later that night. Dude, I'm sorry about the drama. I had no idea she'd show up. Not your fault, man. Thanks for having security handle it. Are you kidding? That was the best entertainment we could have asked for. My wedding's gonna be remembered forever now. I got a call from Nora Tuesday morning. Your ex violated her restraining order at a public event with about 50 witnesses and video evidence. The DA wants to revoke her probation and send her to jail. She's also facing additional charges for the harassment of your girlfriend. Interested in pressing charges? Absolutely. Last I heard, she's doing 18 months in county lockup. She wanted me to deal with it. I did, on my terms. The lesson is simple. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Peace out, Reddit. Story 2. My father told me to sit somewhere else at his retirement dinner because this table is for immediate family. When they tried sticking me with the $6,000 bill, I walked out and left them to rot in their own mess. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit, always been the odd one out in my family. My brother took the college route and got a shiny accounting career. I dropped out after a semester, got my CDL, and built a business from a truck cab. Dad never missed a chance to call me a disappointment. Last month, they invited me to Dad's retirement dinner at some overpriced steakhouse. Thought maybe they wanted me there for once? Nah, they didn't. Buckle up. I, 36 male, have been on the road for almost 15 years. Started as a company driver making shit money, sleeping in truck stops, and missing every holiday. Back then, I was pulling in maybe $38,000 a year while dealing with dispatchers who treated us like disposable parts. The cab of my first assigned truck smelled like 3 decades of cigarettes and fast food, but I had a plan. I saved every penny, lived like a monk in a $600 a month efficiency apartment with cinder block walls and a shower that barely fit my 6'2" frame, and eventually bought my own rig, a used Peterbilt 389 with 780,000 miles that I fixed up myself. Then another. Now I own a small fleet of 8 trucks, employ 12 drivers plus 3 office staff, and clear about $380,000 a year after expenses, fuel costs, maintenance, and payroll. Not bad for a dropout disappointment. My trucking business didn't happen overnight. I spent 5 years driving for others before saving the $45,000 down payment for my first used rig. I took night classes in business management at the community college. Not that my family bothered to notice. I researched the most profitable routes, specialized in refrigerated goods which pay better rates, and built a reputation for on-time deliveries. Eventually, I secured contracts with regional distributors who didn't want to deal with the headaches of fleet maintenance and driver management. My best friend Darren saw it coming from day one. Back when everyone else was laughing at my truck driver phase, he was the only one who got it. "These assholes don't understand business," he'd say bluntly. "They think success only comes with a piece of paper on the wall." Darren runs an auto repair shop across town and has the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Exactly why we've been tight since high school. We played offensive line together. He was right guard, I was right tackle, and we protected our quarterback like our lives depended on it. That mentality carried over after graduation. 2 years ago, I adopted Buck, a German Shepherd from a rescue. Some jackass abandoned him when he moved out of state. He's with me almost everywhere, riding shotgun in the F-350, sleeping at the office, the works. Best decision I ever made. When you've dealt with family like mine, having something around that's actually loyal makes a difference. Buck has become the unofficial mascot of my company. My drivers bring him treats, the ladies in the office spoil him rotten, and my clients always ask about him. He's got better social skills than I do, honestly, and he's got a sixth sense about people. If Buck doesn't like you, there's usually a good reason. Meanwhile, my brother, Nate, 39 male, followed the right path, got his accounting degree, married Grace, his college sweetheart, and they have 2 kids, a boy and a girl, ages 8 and 6. Perfect American dream, right? Nate makes around $90,000 working for some corporate firm downtown. He's got the 4,000 square foot house in the suburbs with the $2,800 monthly mortgage, the leased BMW 5 Series he can barely afford, and about $40,000 in credit card debt he doesn't talk about. Dad thinks he walks on water. Every Christmas, Nate makes a big show of the family vacation they just took or the new golf clubs he bought. But I've seen his credit card statements when he left them on the counter once while I was at their house. Minimum payments across the board. The guy is drowning in debt, but keeps up appearances like his life depends on it. My parents are pieces of work themselves. Dad, 63 male, spent his life as a middle manager at a manufacturing plant, always complaining about being passed over for promotion. His favorite phrase is, "I would have been VP if it weren't for office politics." Yeah, sure. Nothing to do with his mediocre performance and tendency to take credit for other people's work. Mom, 61 female, worked part-time at a doctor's office, mostly spending her time gossiping about the patients and judging people based on their medical conditions. They've both got that boomer mentality, where they think they worked harder than anyone else despite having it easier than any generation since. Dad loves telling stories about how he paid for college by working summers. Conveniently leaves out that college cost about $500 a semester back then. Mom brags about buying their first house at 23. Doesn't mention that it costs 3 times their annual salary, not the 8 to 10 times it costs young people today. Over the years, our relationship went from bad to worse. Every time I visited, which wasn't often, Dad would make these backhanded comments about my career choice. I saw one of those big rigs jackknife on the interstate, he'd say during dinner. Guess that's the kind of thing that happens when they let anyone get a CDL these days. Or he'd talk about Nate's new promotion in front of me, then ask if I'd considered going back to school. What they didn't know, or chose to ignore, was that while Nate was living paycheck to paycheck in his McMansion, I was quietly building something substantial. My fleet brings in $1.8 million in gross revenue. I've got commercial contracts with 3 major distributors, a real estate portfolio of 4 rental properties that generate $5,700 in monthly passive income, and a 7-figure investment account. My sister-in-law Grace knew, though. She'd drop hints sometimes about their financial struggles when Nate wasn't around. Nate had to take a cash advance to pay for Timmy's baseball camp, she once told me. Or, we're thinking of refinancing again to consolidate some debt. Funny thing is, I've actually bailed them out more than once. When Nate's mortgage was underwater during the housing crisis, I loaned him $15,000. Never mentioned it again. When Dad's transmission went out in his precious Cadillac, I covered the $4,800 repair bill. When Mom needed dental work not covered by insurance, I handled the $3,200 without a word. When Nate's kid needed emergency surgery and their insurance had a $5,000 deductible, guess who covered it? They conveniently forgot these moments when it came time to respect what I'd built. That's how families operate, Darren told me once while we were watching a game. They'll take your help but still treat you like garbage. It's the Thompson family special. He wasn't wrong. I've also got a half-sister, Tori, 27 female, from Dad's brief affair back in the day. Mom took him back, but always treated Tori like shit. Tori and I actually get along great. She's a tattoo artist who never bought into the family's bullshit either. She's the only one I keep in regular contact with. For the past 4 years, I've barely seen any of them. Last Christmas, I sent gifts for the kids but didn't show up for dinner. Tori came to visit me on the road once or twice. That was it. I was too busy building my empire to deal with their bullshit. My blood pressure literally dropped 15 points after I stopped regular contact, according to my doctor. Then last month, I got the call. Dad was retiring. They were having this exclusive family celebration at Morton's Steakhouse, supposedly the fanciest place in town. Mom called, then Nate, then Mom again. Tori texted me saying, "They're being weird about this dinner. I think they're up to something." I should have listened to her. But like an idiot, I thought maybe, just maybe, they actually wanted to patch things up. After 15 years of their shit, I still had this small hope they might eventually see me as something other than a failure. I pulled up to Morton's in my F350 Platinum. 7.3-liter Power Stroke diesel, 1,050 pound-feet of torque, custom flatbed in the back for hauling parts when needed. Cost me $84,000 cash, no financing. Buck sat in the passenger seat, looking at me like he knew what was coming. I told him to stay and crack the windows. He'd be fine for a couple hours. The valet gave my truck the once-over, a mixture of respect for the vehicle and confusion about the guy driving it. He wasn't sure if I was someone important in work clothes or just some contractor who took a wrong turn. I handed him the keys and told him to park it somewhere visible. "It's got a security system that gets triggered easily," I lied. "I just wanted it where I could see it from inside." Trust issues? Maybe, but they've served me well. The valet gave me a look like I was delivering meat to the kitchen. Whatever. I've seen that look my whole adult life. People assume I'm just some uneducated grunt who moves things from point A to point B. They don't realize I run complex logistics operations, manage a multi-million-dollar business, and make more in a month than most of them do in a year. Their ignorance isn't my problem. Inside, I spotted them at a large table in the center of the restaurant. Dad was holding court, loudly talking about his legacy at the company. Nate sat next to him, nodding at everything like a dashboard bobblehead. Mom was on Dad's other side, occasionally smiling that fake smile she saves for public appearances. Grace looked uncomfortable, checking her phone repeatedly. The kids weren't there, probably with a babysitter. Tori hadn't arrived yet. There was also a couple I didn't recognize. Turned out to be Dad's boss, Frank, and his wife, Diane. Great. An audience. When Dad saw me, he didn't stand up or anything. Just nodded and said, "Well, the prodigal son returns. Thought you might be too busy with your trucks?" Already starting with the condescension. I should have walked out right then. I went to sit in the empty chair next to Grace, but Nate quickly spoke up. "Actually, Hank, that's for Tori. You can grab one from another table. This setup is for immediate family and Dad's guests of honor." I looked at him for a second, taking in what he was saying. "I'm not immediate family?" Mom jumped in with some bullshit excuse about seating arrangements. I glanced around the table. Everyone was watching like this was some kind of test. Nate had that smug little smirk he's had since we were kids. I pulled up a chair from a nearby empty table, wedging myself between the wall and the corner of their table. The server came by looking confused about the seating arrangement, but didn't say anything. "Just a water for now," I told him. That's when I started noticing things. Dad and Nate kept exchanging these looks. Mom kept mentioning how successful retirement planning is so important. Frank and Diane seemed completely unaware of any tension, just happy to be getting a free meal. When Tori finally arrived, she took one look at the setup, raised an eyebrow at me sitting off to the side, and immediately got it. "This feels like a setup," she whispered when she hugged me hello. "Yep," I replied quietly. "Let's see how it plays out." She sat in her seat, though I noticed no one had actually saved her a spot until I tried to sit there. Another tell. Then the ordering started. Dad went first, loudly proclaiming he'd have the tomahawk ribeye, $165. Nate and Mom followed suit with equally expensive orders. Nate's wife Grace looked physically pained when he ordered both the lobster tail add-on and the black truffle butter, silently mouthing something that looked like, "We can't afford this." Frank and Diane ordered the surf and turf. Mom made a big show of insisting they get appetizers too. I quickly calculated they were already over $2,000 into this meal. As the food arrived and the drinks flowed, it became increasingly obvious what was happening. Every few minutes, someone would drop a comment about my trucking business or ask if I was doing okay financially. "Those big rigs must cost a fortune in fuel these days," Nate said at one point. "What are you paying, like $5 a gallon?" "Around that," I replied, not mentioning that I had bulk contracts with 3 fuel suppliers that kept my costs 22% below retail and a fleet card that gave me another 5% kickback. "Hank's probably doing better than you think," Tori interjected. "He's actually—" "Oh, I'm sure he's fine," Mom interrupted quickly. "Though it must be hard living in that tiny apartment." I almost laughed. I hadn't lived in an apartment for years. I owned a house outright on 5 acres outside the city, $410,000, paid in cash 2 years ago. But they wouldn't know that since none of them had ever visited. My place has a 3-car garage where I keep my weekend car, a 2023 Corvette Z06 I bought as a gift to myself after landing a major contract, a fully equipped home gym, and a workshop where I restore vintage motorcycles as a hobby. Currently working on a 1978 Harley Shovelhead that's almost done. But sure, Mom, I'm in a tiny apartment. As dessert menus were handed out, Dad leaned back in his chair, visibly drunk, and announced, "Let's go all out. One of everything for the table." The server nodded enthusiastically and scurried off to put in the order. That's when Nate turned to me with what he probably thought was a subtle look and said, "By the way, Hank, we all figured since you missed so many family events over the years, you'd want to handle the bill tonight. Sort of a makeup gift for Dad's retirement. We already told the server." And there it was. The real reason for the invitation. All these years, I'd wondered if I was the problem. But this confirmed everything. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a wallet. 3 hours and countless drinks later, the server appeared with the black leather folder. Without hesitation, he placed it directly in front of me. "Whenever you're ready, sir," he said with a smile. The table went completely silent. Even Frank and Diane seemed to suddenly realize something was off. Dad was staring at me expectantly, one eyebrow raised. Mom had that smile she gets when she's pretending everything is fine. Nate was actually smirking. I picked up the folder and opened it casually. $5,850.76. Nearly $6,000 for a dinner. I could have bought a set of Michelin X-Line Energy Z tires for my entire fleet for that. Just for perspective, $5,850 is what one of my trucks grosses on a good 3-day haul from Chicago to Dallas. That's 60 hours of operation, 900 miles of wear and tear, fuel costs, driver wages, insurance, and everything else. They blew that amount on a single meal. I closed the folder and set it down in front of me, saying nothing. The silence stretched uncomfortably. "Well," Dad finally said. Are you going to take care of that or what? I looked around the table. Did anyone here actually ask if I was willing to pay for dinner tonight? Nate scoffed. Come on, don't be difficult. We all know you've got the cash. Those trucks of yours must bring in something. So, because I have money, which, by the way, I earned by busting my ass for 15 years in a job you all look down on, I'm automatically responsible for a $6,000 dinner bill that I didn't agree to. Mom leaned forward. Hank, this is your father's retirement dinner. Don't make a scene. I'm not making a scene, I replied calmly. I'm just asking a simple question. When exactly did I agree to cover tonight's bill? Dad's face was getting red. This is ridiculous. Just pay the damn bill so we can go home. I picked up the folder again, looked at it thoughtfully, then said it directly in front of my father. No. That single word landed like a bomb. Dad's mouth actually fell open. What did you just say? He sputtered. I said no. I'm not paying for this. Nate jumped in. You can't be serious. This was the arrangement. An arrangement none of you bothered to discuss with me, I pointed out. You just assumed. Like you've always assumed things about me. Frank and Diane were looking extremely uncomfortable now. Frank cleared his throat. Maybe we should contribute our portion. No, Dad said quickly. This isn't about you. My son is just being difficult. I leaned back in my chair. I'm not being difficult. I'm setting a boundary. Something I should have done years ago. Tori was trying to hide a smile behind her hand. Grace was staring intently at her empty plate. Mom's voice dropped to that dangerous whisper she used when she was really angry. Hank James Thompson, you will pay this bill right now, after everything we've done for you. That made me laugh. Actually laugh out loud. After everything you've done for me? Let's review, shall we? You belittled my career choice for 15 years. You excluded me from family events. You've never once visited my business or my home. Dad, you told your golf buddies I was between jobs when I was building $1 million company. None of you, except Tori, even know what my company does or how successful it's become. Dad started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. No, I'm not finished. You know what successful retirement planning actually looks like? It looks like the diversified portfolio I started building at 25. It looks like living below your means and investing the difference. Not blowing $6,000 on dinner and expecting someone else to cover it. I pulled out my wallet, dropped $40 on the table for my water and tip, and started walking away. Hank! Mom called after me. You can't just leave! I turned back one last time. Watch me. The looks on their faces were priceless. Nate looked like he'd been slapped. Dad was turning purple. Mom was doing her shocked Victorian lady routine. As I walked out, I heard the manager approaching the table. The night was about to get even more uncomfortable for them. I made it halfway to my truck before I heard footsteps rushing behind me. It was Grace, Nate's wife, looking panicked. Hank, please, she said, catching up to me. They really can't cover this. Nate's been laid off for 3 months. He hasn't told anyone. That stopped me in my tracks. What? She nodded, looking miserable. The credit cards are maxed out. We're behind on the mortgage. Your parents aren't in great shape either. Your dad's retirement package wasn't what he expected. And you thought the solution was to trick me into paying for a $6,000 dinner? It wasn't my idea, she said quickly. Nate and your dad cooked this up. They figured you wouldn't make a scene in public, especially with Frank there. Why didn't Nate just ask me for help directly? Pride, she said simply. And your dad convinced him this would work. I almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remembered 15 years of snide comments, exclusion, and judgment. I remembered Nate telling our extended family that my business was just a phase, even after I'd cleared my first $1 million in revenue. I remembered Dad introducing Nate's kids as his grandchildren, but referring to me as our younger son, like I was still a teenager and not a grown man running a successful business. Tell Nate he can call me tomorrow, I finally said. We can talk about a loan, but I'm not going back in there, and I'm definitely not paying for that ridiculous dinner. Grace nodded rapidly and hurried back to the restaurant. I got in my truck and sat there for a minute, watching through the window. I could see them all arguing at the table. Frank and his wife were pulling out their wallets, clearly contributing what they could. Buck perked up when I got in, tail wagging slightly against the seat. At least someone was glad to see me. The server was hovering nearby, looking increasingly concerned. The manager had joined him. I could only imagine the scene unfolding. But my son was supposed to pay. Well, he clearly isn't going to. This is outrageous! Sir, we still need someone to cover the bill. I started the engine and drove away. My phone started blowing up immediately with texts demanding I come back. I turned it off and just drove for a while, feeling lighter than I had in years. Driving calms me, always has. There's something about being on the open road that puts things in perspective. That's why I loved trucking from the start, even when the pay was shit and the hours were brutal. You get time to think, and what I thought about that night was why I'd ever expected anything different from them. They'd shown me who they were over and over. It was time I finally believed them. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to find 17 missed calls and about 30 texts. Most were from my family, but there was one from Frank, Dad's boss, that caught my attention. Hank, this is Frank Williams from dinner last night. I got your number from the server. I think we need to talk. There's more going on with your father's retirement than you know. That was interesting. I called him back immediately. Hank, yes, thank you for calling back. He sounded exhausted. Look, I feel like I need to clear something up. I'm not your father's boss. I'm his financial advisor. What the hell? Last night wasn't what your father made it out to be, Frank continued. He told me it was a family dinner to celebrate your new business partnership with him. Something about you bringing him on as a consultant for your trucking company. I nearly choked. That's complete fiction. He's never stepped foot in my business. I figured as much, Frank sighed. Look, I don't normally discuss clients' situations, but given what happened last night, I think you should know the truth. That dinner last night wasn't actually a retirement celebration. Your father isn't retiring. He was fired 3 months ago for misappropriating company funds. They gave him a choice: face criminal charges or quietly resign with no benefits. My mind was reeling. And the dinner? Your father and brother set it up. They told us you were wealthy and wanted to treat everyone to celebrate a new business venture. We had no idea they expected you to pay until things got awkward. So they lied to you to get you there, then tried to stick me with the bill without warning. Classy. Frank cleared his throat. There's more. Your father has been making some questionable financial decisions for years. He's essentially broke. The house has a second mortgage, his 401k is depleted, and he's got significant credit card debt. He's been telling everyone he's fine, but he's not. After thanking Frank for his honesty, I hung up and immediately called Tori. Did you know Dad got fired? I asked when she picked up. What? No, I thought he was retiring. She sounded genuinely shocked. That explains why he and Mom have been selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace, though. What kind of stuff? Mom's jewelry, the riding lawnmower, Dad's golf clubs. I thought they were just downsizing. The more I dug, the worse it got. Nate hadn't just been laid off. He'd been fired for fudging expense reports. Dad had blown through his 401k already. Mom had been telling people I promised to take care of them in their retirement. Pure fiction. They'd been living beyond their means for years, assuming they could eventually guilt me into bailing them out. The dinner was their first attempt to tap the bank of Hank. I called Darren that afternoon and filled him in while throwing a tennis ball for Buck in the backyard. You've got to be freaking kidding me, he said. So let me get this straight. They treat you like shit for 15 years, then expect you to cover their asses when their financial house of cards collapses? Classic Thompson family bullshit. He was right, as usual. Darren's been my reality check since high school. When I was considering buying my first truck, he sat me down with a calculator and worked through the numbers with me. When I was thinking about hiring my first employee, he helped me figure out the true costs beyond just salary. And when I dated that crazy woman who keyed my car after 3 weeks, he was the one who said, I told you she was nuts, but you had to learn the hard way. So when Darren predicted my family would come crawling back with their hands out, I knew it was just a matter of time. 3 days after the disaster at Morton's, I got a text from Dad. We need to talk. Family meeting at our house tomorrow at 6. No apology. No acknowledgement of what happened. Just a demand for my presence. Like I was still a kid who could be ordered around. I showed up right on time, pulling into their driveway in my truck. Buck sat alert in the passenger seat. I decided to leave him in the truck again. Partly because Mom is allergic, but mostly because I wanted a quick getaway option. The house looked the same as always from the outside, but I noticed the lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks, and Dad's precious Cadillac was missing from the driveway. Inside, they were all waiting. Mom, Dad, Nate, Grace, and surprisingly, Tori. They looked terrible. Have a seat, son, Dad said, gesturing to the couch. I remained standing. I'd rather hear what this is about first. Dad cleared his throat. We've hit a rough patch. I'm sure you figured that out by now. The company, well, there was a misunderstanding about some funds, and they decided to part ways. You mean you got fired for stealing? I said flatly. His face flushed. It wasn't stealing. It was an unauthorized loan I was going to pay back. You were taking company money without permission. That's the definition of stealing, Dad. You don't understand the pressure I was under, he snapped. We had appearances to maintain. And Nate? Nate looked up briefly. Creative accounting. They didn't appreciate my methods. Creative accounting, I repeated. So fraud. Nate didn't deny it, just looked back down at his hands. So now what? I asked, even though I already knew where this was headed. Mom jumped in. We thought as family we could help each other out, just until things stabilize. The dinner was a test, Dad admitted. We needed to see if you'd step up when needed. I laughed. A test I apparently failed. This isn't a joke, Hank, Mom snapped. We're about to lose the house. Nate's family might have to move in with us. We need help. I looked around at all of them. Let me get this straight. You've spent my entire adult life looking down on me for being a truck driver. You've mocked my career, excluded me from family events, treated me like I was nothing. Now that you've screwed up your lives, you expect me to swoop in and fix everything? You're doing well, Dad argued. Those trucks must be worth something. They are. I've built a successful business despite all of you. Not because of you. Tori spoke up. Hank, they asked me to talk to you too. I told them they were crazy, but they wouldn't listen. I turned to her. It's okay, Tori. This isn't on you. Then I addressed the rest of them. Here's what's going to happen. I'm not giving you money to maintain the lifestyle you think you deserve. What I will do is offer Nate a job. Nate's head snapped up. A job? Doing what? Driving one of my trucks. The silence was deafening. You want me to be a truck driver? Nate finally said, disgust evident in his voice. Yes. Starting salary is $75,000 plus benefits. Full health insurance, $50,000 life policy, 401k with 3% match. It's honest work, Nate. The kind you look down on. I could see him doing the calculations in his head. $75,000 wasn't his old $90,000, but it was better than unemployment. But to work for his younger brother, doing the job he'd mocked for years. Dad stood up, face red. This is your idea of helping? Humiliating your brother? No, it's my idea of teaching him some humility. Something this family could use a lot more of. Mom was crying now. After everything we've done for you. That's the second time you've said that, I noted. And I'm still waiting to hear what exactly you've done for me, besides make me feel like shit for most of my life. No one had an answer. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. By the way, I paid off your dinner bill at Morton's. Their faces lit up momentarily. But, I continued, I've filed it as a loan with my company's attorney. I handed the paper to Dad. Those are the repayment terms. $6,000 plus 8% interest, due in full within 24 months. You can make payments monthly, or Nate can work it off at $250 per payment. Dad's hands shook as he read the document. This is a joke. It's a legally binding loan agreement. My attorney has already filed the paperwork. You can't be serious, Nate said. Completely serious. You wanted my money? Fine. But you're not getting it for free. And you're not getting it through manipulation. Grace looked like she might faint. Nate looked like he wanted to punch something. Dad was turning purple. Mom stood up dramatically. I can't believe I raised such a heartless son. You raised a son who learned to look out for himself because nobody else would, I corrected her, and who learned the value of actual hard work instead of shortcuts and schemes. I turned to leave, then stopped. Nate, the job offer stands. It's honest work that pays well. If you're man enough to take it, call me. And what if we don't pay the loan? Dad called after me. I turned back one last time. Then I'll take your house. It's listed as collateral in paragraph 3. It wasn't, and any lawyer would have thrown out the agreement in seconds. But watching the blood drain from his face was worth the bluff. Outside, Tori followed me. That was brutal, she said, but she was smiling. They had it coming. Oh, absolutely. So what now? You think Nate will take the job? Not a chance in hell, I replied. His pride won't let him, but he won't find anything that pays as well, especially with a firing for accounting fraud on his record. Buck was watching us through the window, head tilted. Tori laughed when she saw him. At least you've got one loyal family member. The next day, I went back to work like nothing happened. I had 3 contract bids to review, a maintenance schedule to approve, and a potential new driver to interview. 2 weeks later, Nate proved me wrong. He showed up at my office. He looked like hell. I'll take the job, he said, not meeting my eyes. I studied him for a moment. Part of me wanted to gloat, to rub his face in it, but that's not how I build my business. Good, I replied. You start Monday, 5 a.m. sharp. I've never driven anything bigger than my BMW, he admitted. We'll put you through training. You'll need to get your CDL. It'll take a few weeks, but we'll get you there. He was relieved and actually thanked me for the first time in his life. After he left, I called Darren. You're not going to believe this. Nate took the job. Holy shit, Darren said. Hell must be freezing over. We'll see how long he lasts, I replied. My bet's 3 weeks, Darren said. Want to put $50 on it? Make it $100. Dad and Mom eventually had to sell their house and move into a small apartment. They still tell family friends that I'm the villain who wouldn't help them in their time of need. That's fine by me. I learned long ago that you can't control what other people think of you. The loan agreement? I never filed it or enforced it. That wasn't the point. The point was showing them they couldn't manipulate me anymore. Nate lasted 3 months as a driver before quitting. I won the bet with Darren. Those 3 months changed him, though. He gained a new respect for what I do. He found an entry-level accounting job after that, making about half what he used to. Grace thanked me for at least giving him a chance. Told me he's different now over coffee one day. Nate and I aren't close, but we're civil now. He brings his kids over sometimes to swim in my pool and play with Buck. His son thinks his Uncle Hank's trucks are the coolest things ever. Maybe someday I'll teach him to drive one. Tori moved into my guest house for a while and opened her own tattoo shop with a small business loan I co-signed for her. She's doing great. Booked solid 3 months out with a growing reputation for custom mechanical designs like the ones on my arm. She paid back the loan in full a year early. Mom still doesn't talk to me much. Dad tries occasionally, usually when he needs something. I keep them at arm's length. As for me, I added 2 more trucks to my fleet last month, signed an annual contract with a national retail chain, bought another rental property that'll add $1,900 to my monthly passive income. Business is booming. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd caved that night at Morton's. If I'd paid the bill, let them keep treating me like a failure who somehow had money. It would have never ended. One bill would have led to another. Then mortgage payments, credit card bailouts, loans that would never be repaid. Instead, I held my ground, set boundaries, made them face reality. Darren still gives me shit about everything. Buck still rides shotgun everywhere I go, and I still don't get invited to family gatherings. And it's the best damn thing that ever happened to me. Story 3. During a girls' night, my fiancée butt dialed me while she was trashing my proposal to her friend. I listened for 20 minutes without interrupting. Then I texted her friend in the same group, put her on speaker for me. The panic on the other end was beautiful. All right, Reddit. This story is going to tick you off, at first. My fiancée butt dialed me during girls' night, and I heard 25 minutes of her trashing everything about me and our relationship while bragging about her cheating. I did what she never imagined me doing and watched her life implode. I'm Damien, 32 male, pulling down $85K as a senior project manager for this mid-sized construction company. Not tech money, but solid enough that I own a decent 2-bedroom condo and can afford to live without checking my bank account every 5 minutes. Been grinding at this job for 7 years, working my way up from the bottom. Started as a site supervisor making $38K, busting my butt in the heat while college kids with daddy's money got fast-tracked into office jobs. Julia and I met 3 years ago at this rooftop bar downtown. I was celebrating my promotion with my boys, Finn, Mike, and Torres from work. We shut the place down, spent probably $400, and earned every penny of that hangover. Julia was there with her girlfriends. 28, worked as a social media coordinator for some wellness brand. Hot as heck, though. Long dark hair, great smile, and this laugh that made you want to be the guy causing it. I'm not gonna lie, I was feeling confident that night. New promotion, good buzz, wearing this navy button-down that made my shoulders look broad. She approached me, then I made some jokes, and had her laughing within 5 minutes. Our first date was perfect. Took her to this steakhouse I'd been wanting to try. Nothing crazy expensive, but quality. She ordered the filet mignon without even looking at the price, which I respected. No games, no pretending she only wanted a salad. We talked for 3 hours straight, and when I walked her to her car, she kissed me first. 6 months in, we had this weekend at a cabin I rented up in the mountains. 2 hours north, no cell service, just us and a bottle of soda. She brought some book about mindfulness or whatever. I brought my laptop to catch up on some project reports. Friday night, she's curled up against me by the fireplace, reading while I worked, and she looks up and says, "I love how focused you are." Made me feel like I'd found someone who actually got what I was about. Someone who didn't need constant entertainment or validation. Someone solid. Looking back, I was a moron. There were some signs I ignored. The first red flag should have been how she always compared us to other couples. Not directly asking for stuff, but always making sure I knew what the competition was doing. Hazel's boyfriend surprised her with flowers just because it's Tuesday. Alora's guy took her to that new place with the tasting menu. Never demanding I do the same, just reminding me what was out there, you know? The second red flag was the money thing. We'd split checks early on, which I respected, but she'd always make these little comments. I love how independent we are, but I have to admit, I get a little jealous when I see traditional guys who insist on paying. Not asking me to pay, just letting me know that real men handled the bill. I'd be thinking to myself, excuse me, ma'am, I thought you were strong and independent. Pick a side. Anyways, the third red flag was her friend Hazel. This woman was pure poison in designer clothes. Every time she was around, she'd plant little seeds of doubt. You guys are so cute together, but you're still so young. There's so much world to explore before settling down, always said with this fake smile. Besides all of that, everything else was good, or so I thought. The proposal happened 3 months ago, and I went all out. Not because I felt pressured, but because I thought Julia deserved it. I'd been planning for 2 months, saved up 4 months of overtime pay. That's 12 grand in cash, by the way. Not credit card, not a payment plan. Hard cash that I earned by working 60-hour weeks and eating PB&J for lunch every day. Hit up 3 different jewelry stores, did my research, learned about cuts and clarity and all that stuff, settled on this classic round diamond, 1.2 carats, excellent cut, set in white gold with small diamonds on the band. The sales guy tried to upsell me to some gaudy 2-carat monstrosity, but I knew Julia's style. She was classy, not flashy, made reservations at this upscale Italian place downtown. Same place we went for our third date. The proposal was smooth as heck. I had the ring in my jacket pocket, palms sweating like I was about to give a presentation to the CEO. Waited until after we'd finished our appetizers, took her hand across the table, and told her exactly how I felt. Dropped to one knee right there in the restaurant. The whole place went quiet. People started pulling out phones, the works. When I opened that little black box, her face lit up like freaking Christmas morning. She said yes before I even finished asking the question. But here's what should have been the biggest red flag. Within 30 seconds of saying yes, she was more focused on photographing the ring than kissing me. First words out of her mouth after yes were, "Oh my God, wait until Hazel sees this." Her first instinct was to show off for the same toxic friends who'd been undermining our relationship for years. I should have known right then I was getting engaged to her Instagram feed. So, one Friday night, Julia announced girls' night with her usual crew, Hazel, Alora, and a couple other vultures whose names I never bothered learning. I was actually relieved. Gave me a guilt-free night to have Finn over for some Call of Duty and wings. Try not to solve all the world's problems in one night, I told her, as she spent 2 hours getting ready. Finn showed up with a 12-pack of soda and his Xbox controller around 8 p.m. Then, when we were deep into some war zone, my phone started buzzing around 10:30. Julia's contact photo. Hold up, let me see what she needs, I told Finn, pausing the game. I answered expecting to hear bar noise and Julia asking for an Uber pickup or something. Instead, I got muffled sounds, like the phone was in her purse, and background chatter. I was about to hang up when I heard her voice crystal freaking clear. The whole thing was just so pathetic. Like, embarrassingly pathetic. Finn looked over at me, eyebrows raised. Something in my gut told me this wasn't about her job or some random drama. I put the phone on speaker. He took me to Marcello's, the same place we went for our third date. Zero creativity, zero effort. Just recycled romance because he's too freaking cheap and unimaginative to try harder. My blood turned to ice water. She was talking about our engagement. And the ring? Her voice got higher, more animated. Girls, I'm not even kidding. It's so small I have to angle my hand just right in photos so people can't see how tiny the diamond is. I had to fake excitement because the whole restaurant was watching. But oh my God, I've seen bigger stones at the mall kiosk. Finn's jaw dropped. Bro, what the actual Hush! I gestured for him to stay quiet so I could listen to my fiancée humiliating me in front of her cult. Hazel's voice came through the speaker. Seriously, how much could he have possibly spent? Like $1,000? Maybe 1,500 if he really went crazy. You know Damien. He's the type who checks Groupon before booking dinner reservations. Finn grabbed my shoulder and mouthed, "Holy crap," while I sat there feeling like I'd been punched in the throat. $1,500. The ring cost me 4 months of overtime, living on whatever food and gas station coffee, and working weekends. Compare that to Jensen from my office, Julia continued. This guy shows me pictures of the jewelry he's looking at for his investments. We're talking real stones. 5-figure minimum. That's what a successful man does when he knows what he wants. Sounds like Jensen knows how to treat a woman right, Alora chimed in. Oh, he does. When we go out for lunch, money is no object. Last week he took me to that place downtown where dinner runs $400 for 2 people. Didn't even blink at the bill. When we go out. Present freaking tense. Like it was a regular thing. Finn was recording now. holding up his phone to capture everything. Smart move. Jensen has been asking me out for months, and honestly, I'm starting to think I picked the wrong guy. He's successful, confident, drives that gorgeous Audi S5, lives in one of those high-rise condos with the city view. Everything Damien isn't and will never be. Each word hit like a sledgehammer to the chest. So why are you still with Damien? One of the other girls asked. Because I thought I loved him. But it's like settling, you know? Damien is the safe choice. The reliable Honda Civic when what you really want is the Porsche. The whole room erupted in giggles. Damien comes home at 5:30 every day, watches Netflix until bedtime, and thinks Olive Garden is fine dining. No ambition, no excitement, no growth. Jensen talks about opening his own investment firm, traveling to Europe every summer, buying rental properties. When Damien talks about the future, it's just more of the same boring middle-class BS. Have you and Jensen? Hazel let the question hang in the air. Nothing physical yet, but God, the chemistry is unreal. When we're together for these work lunches, it's electric. He looks at me like I'm the most fascinating woman alive. These women were eating it up, making encouraging noises like they were therapists helping her work through some deep trauma. Damien's decent in bed, but he's so predictable. Jensen has this confidence about him. You just know he'd take complete control. Finn was staring at me like I'd been shot. 20 minutes of my fiancée explaining to her friends how embarrassed she was by everything about me, how she was basically cheating with her coworker, how she'd settled for less than what she deserved. You deserve so much better than this, Hazel said. You're 28. You're gorgeous. You work for a trendy company. Men like Jensen are out there waiting for you. I'd heard enough. More than enough. Finn stopped recording and looked at me with pure rage in his eyes. Dude, what the heck are you gonna do? I didn't even hesitate. I opened Facebook Messenger, found Alora's profile, and typed, "Put Julia on speaker. I've got something to say to everyone." Hit send. The effect was immediate and beautiful. The chatter stopped dead. Someone gasped. I could hear chairs scraping, panic spreading through their little group like wildfire. "Oh my God, Julia!" Alora's voice was barely a whisper. "Damien just messaged me. He can hear us." Dead silence except for bar noise and what sounded like Julia's soul evacuating her body. "Damien!" Her voice cracked. "Damien, are you there?" I let the silence stretch for a full 30 seconds. Let her imagination run wild about how screwed she was. Finally, I spoke. "Yeah, Julia. Been listening for the last 25 minutes. Really educational conversation you ladies were having. Baby, I can explain. I was just... No need to explain stuff. You were crystal freaking clear. Thanks for the honesty. Really saves us both some time. Baby, I was tipsy. I didn't mean..." Funny how fast she pulled that card. "Oh, you meant every dang word. And Jensen? Tell him good luck dealing with your toxic friends and your constant need for validation. He's gonna freaking need it." Finn was grinning like Christmas morning, pumping his fist silently. "Oh, and Julia? That embarrassingly small ring you've been lying about? It cost $12,000, not $1,500. But don't worry, you won't have to be embarrassed by my cheap taste much longer." And I hung up. My phone exploded. Calls, texts, Julia, Alora, Hazel, numbers I didn't recognize. All variations of panic and desperate damage control. Finn was still holding his phone with that recording. "Dude," he said, "I got every freaking word of that. Every single word." I turned off my phone and cracked open another soda. "Send me that file. I've got some calls to make tomorrow." Saturday morning, I woke up with the kind of clarity you only get when someone shows you exactly who they are. First stop, the bank. I walked into my branch at 9 a.m. sharp and closed our joint wedding account. Julia had contributed maybe $2,000 to the $14,000 we'd saved up. Most of it was my money anyway. Transferred every penny back to my personal checking, while the teller looked confused but processed it without questions. Next stop, Friedman's Jewelry, where I'd bought the ring. I walked in with my receipt and the return policy I'd photographed with my phone 3 months ago. The sales guy, same dude who'd helped me pick it out, looked genuinely sad. "Things didn't work out, huh?" They worked out exactly how they were supposed to. In $12,000 return, processed in 15 minutes. No questions, no drama, just money back in my account where it belonged. Then I started making the calls that would burn Julia's life to the ground. Wedding venue. "I need to cancel the reservation for Johnson Morrison, September 15th. "I'm sorry to hear that, sir. There is a cancellation fee of $1,500. Send the bill to Julia Morrison. She's the primary contact on the contract." Caterer. $800 cancellation fee. Julia's problem. Photographer. $600 deposit forfeited. also Julia's problem. DJ, $300 cancellation fee. You guessed it. See, Julia had insisted on being the primary contact for all the vendors because she wanted creative control over our wedding. Made sense at the time. She was better with details, better at coordinating. What she didn't think about was that being the primary contact meant being financially responsible when stuff went sideways. By noon, Julia was looking at about $4,000 in cancellation fees for a wedding that was never going to happen. But I wasn't done. Finn had sent me the audio file, and I'd been listening to it while I did my errands. Every cruel word, every laugh at my expense, every detail about her emotional affair with Jensen. By the time I got home, I was ready for phase 2. I pulled up Julia's parents' contact info in my phone. John and Elise had treated me like family from day one, invited me to holidays, bought me birthday presents, always asked about my work and seemed genuinely proud when I got promoted. They deserved to know what their daughter really thought about the man they'd welcomed into their family. I sent them a text with the audio file attached. John and Elise, the wedding is canceled. This recording will explain why. Then I opened a soda and waited. My phone started ringing 20 minutes later. John's name on the caller ID. Son, Elise and I just listened to that recording. His voice was thick with disappointment. We are so sorry. We had no idea Julia felt this way about you or that she was involved with someone else. It's not your fault, John. You guys have been nothing but good to me. We're ashamed of her. Elise's voice came through. She was on speaker. This isn't how we raised her. Is there anything we can do? Any way to help fix this mess? I looked around my apartment that I'd been paying for since before Julia moved in her stuff. Just make sure she gets her things out of here by Sunday. That's all I need from you. After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. For the first time in this whole relationship, I wasn't walking on eggshells or trying to decode what Julia really meant when she said something. Julia showed up at my door around 6 p.m., looking like she'd been hit by a truck, wearing yesterday's clothes like a walk of shame costume. Damien, we need to talk. No, we don't. We're done. Pack your stuff and get out. You can't be serious. You're throwing away 3 years over one stupid conversation? I'm not throwing away anything. You already did that when you decided I was your backup plan while you auditioned for an upgrade. She pushed past me into my living room like she owned the place. I'm not going anywhere until we work this out. You're being completely irrational. That's when my phone rang. John again. Damien, son, I hope you don't mind me calling again, but Elise and I wanted you to know something. Julia's eyes went wide when she heard her father's voice. We've been talking about this situation all day, and we want you to know that you'll always be family to us. What Julia did is unforgivable, and we're embarrassed to call her our daughter right now. Julia started gesturing frantically for me to hang up, but I just smiled and put it on speaker. We raised her better than this, Elise's voice came through. The way she talked about your proposal, about how you've provided for her, about this other man, it's disgusting. Mom, please don't, Julia started, but John cut her off. Julia, is that you? We're ashamed of you. Damien has been nothing but good to our family, and this is how you repay him? By mocking him behind his back and running around with some man from your office? The look on her face was worth every penny I'd spent on that ring. After her parents hung up, Julia went full nuclear meltdown mode. You had no right to involve my family. You violated my privacy by listening to a private conversation. You butt-dialed me, genius. If you didn't want me to hear you trashing me, maybe don't pocket dial the person you're trashing. Everyone needs to vent sometimes. Everyone complains about their relationships. I stared at her like she'd grown a second head. For 25 minutes? About how embarrassing I am? About how much better another man would be? About how you're already basically dating him? That's not what I said. I have it recorded, Julia. Every dang word. Her face went white, but she doubled down anyway. This is exactly what I was talking about. You don't fight for anything. You just give up and burn everything down instead of trying to work it out. Don't you dare. I looked her dead in the eye. Listen, you little woman. You can't fool me anymore, understood? Now pack your stuff and get out. She started crying. Damien, please, I was tipsy. Shut the hell up. She refused to leave. Planted herself on my couch in my apartment, crying and making demands like she had any leverage left. This is my home too. You can't just kick me out. Your name's not on the lease. Your name's not on any of the bills. You've been staying here, not living here. That hit different. The tears stopped and I could see the gears turning in her head. She was realizing just how little claim she actually had to anything in my life. Around 8 p.m., there was aggressive pounding on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Julia's entire crew, Hazel, Alora, and two other girls I barely recognized. Damien, you need to calm down and think rationally about this, Hazel said, pushing her way past me like she was conducting a hostage negotiation. These were the same women who'd spent Friday night trashing me. Julia made a mistake, but she loves you, Alora added. Don't throw away a good relationship over one bad night. Let me get this straight. You all spent Friday night trashing me, and now you're here to convince me to stay with someone who's embarrassed to be engaged to me? We were just having girl talk, Hazel started. Cut the BS. That's character assassination. The room went quiet. And now you're in my apartment, telling me to be rational? Get the heck out. All of you. Julia deserves better than this, one of the other girls said. She deserves someone who will fight for her. You're absolutely right, I said. And Julia looked hopeful for the first time all day. She deserves someone who thinks she's worth fighting for. Julia's face fell. I'm not that guy anymore. So take her and go find him. Just do it somewhere else. They started gathering Julia's stuff, her purse, jacket, some clothes she'd left around. As they were heading toward the door, Julia turned back one last time. I want my engagement ring back. I almost laughed. What ring? I returned it this morning. Got my 12 grand back. Her jaw dropped. 12? You said it cost 12,000? Yup, but don't worry. It's none of your concern anymore. Hazel grabbed Julia's arm. Come on, Julia. You don't need this freaking loser. Julia's face went nuclear, but Hazel was already dragging her toward the door. You'll regret this, Julia screamed as they left. You'll never find anyone like me. That's the freaking point, I called after them. Sunday morning, John and Elise showed up at my door with boxes to pack the rest of Julia's stuff. Son, we are so sorry, Elise said. It's not your fault. You raised her right. Sometimes people just choose to be crappy despite good parenting. We want you to know, John said, shaking my hand firmly. You'll always be family to us. If you ever need anything at all, you call us. I smiled and nodded. After they left, I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe years. Then Finn showed up around noon with Chinese food and his laptop. Dude, you need to see this stuff, he said, pulling up Julia's Instagram. She's gone full psycho. Julia had posted some cryptic BS about learning who your real friends are and fake people showing their true colors. Her comment section was full of her girlfriends talking about toxic masculinity and men who can't handle strong women. Screenshot all of this, I told Finn. Over the next few days, Julia's social media became a masterclass in playing the victim. Vague posts about manipulation and emotional abuse, and men who punish women for being honest about their feelings. Hazel was leading the charge in the comments, talking about how I was controlling and couldn't handle Julia's success. None of it was true, but it didn't matter. They were building a narrative where I was the villain and Julia was the victim. The funniest part was watching them try to spin the financial stuff. When word got out that Julia was stuck with thousands in wedding cancellation fees, Hazel posted some rant about how real men don't abandon their responsibilities. Finn screenshot everything and showed me this comment thread where one of his friends from college absolutely destroyed Hazel's logic. So you're saying Julia wanted to be the primary contact for all the wedding planning because she's a strong, independent woman, but when the wedding gets canceled because she was cheating, suddenly she's not responsible for the contracts she signed? Make it make sense, honey. Hazel deleted her post within an hour. Meanwhile, I was having the best month of my life. Hit the gym every morning before work, started reading again, picked up some freelance consulting work that paid $150 an hour. Turns out, when you're not spending every weekend at brunch listening to someone complain about their coworkers, you have a lot more time and energy for yourself. Finn and I started a weekly poker game with some guys from work. Mike, Torres, and a couple other dudes who actually knew how to have fun without documenting every moment on social media. Real conversations about sports, work, investments. 2 weeks into my new life, I got a text from Alora. She was the only one from Julia's crew who seemed to have a functioning conscience. Then, she dropped the bomb. Damien, I need to tell you something about Jensen and Julia. She wasn't telling the truth about their relationship. Interesting. We met somewhere near her work, and she looked genuinely uncomfortable. I feel like crap about all of this, she started. What happened at girls' night was so messed up, and I should have shut it down. So why didn't you? Because Hazel runs that group, and if you don't go along with her BS, she turns on you. I've seen her destroy friendships over nothing. Made sense. Forget about her, though. Here's what I need to tell you. Jensen never showed Julia pictures of expensive jewelry. He never took her to expensive restaurants. He's been actively avoiding her for months. I paused. What do you mean? She's the one chasing him. He has a serious girlfriend. They've been together for like 2 years. Julia knew this, but she kept showing up at his office, finding excuses to work late when he was there, even following him to the gym. The desperation was real. Julia had lost her safety net, me, and was doubling down on a fantasy relationship with a guy who wanted nothing to do with her. After everything blew up with you guys, she got worse. Started calling him constantly, showing up at his apartment building, even contacted his girlfriend on Instagram to warn her about what kind of man Jensen really was. Jesus Christ. It gets worse. She got suspended from work for a week because her behavior was making Jensen uncomfortable. HR had to get involved. Alora pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots of Julia's messages to Jensen's girlfriend. Unhinged stuff about how Jensen was leading Julia on and how his girlfriend deserved to know the truth. Jensen is about to file for a restraining order if she doesn't back off. This is getting scary. I had a better idea. I texted Jensen directly, found his contact info from LinkedIn. Jensen, I know this is weird, but I'm Damien, Julia's ex-fiancé. I heard about the situation at work, and I think we can help each other out. He called me within an hour. Dude, I am so sorry about what happened with your engagement. I had nothing to do with any of that stuff Julia was saying. I figured. Listen, she's been making your life heck since we broke up, right? It's insane. She shows up everywhere I go, calls me at all hours, even followed me to my girlfriend's place and tried to start some confrontation. I'm about to get a restraining order. What if we could end this permanently? Jensen was definitely interested. We met the next day. Jensen was exactly what I'd expected. Good-looking guy, confident, drove a nice car. The kind of dude Julia probably thought she deserved. We talked, then I gave him the plan. You text Julia and tell her you want to talk about everything. Suggest meeting somewhere public. I'll be there with my buddy Finn to witness the whole thing. Wait, you want to publicly humiliate her? I want to give her the chance to prove she can do better than me. Fair and square. Jensen grinned. I'm in, but I want my girlfriend there too. She deserves to see this. Even better. We set it up for Thursday night at Murphy's Diner. Classic spot with booths, comfort food, and plenty of witnesses. Jensen texted Julia asking to meet and sort everything out once and for all. Her response was immediate and desperate. Yes! I've been waiting for this. I knew you felt the same way. Finn and I got there early and grabbed a corner booth with a perfect view of Jensen's table. Finn had his phone ready, recording in 4K. Julia showed up 20 minutes late, dressed like she was going to a nightclub instead of a family diner. Skin-tight black dress that barely covered anything. Clear heels, full makeup, the works. She practically bounced over to Jensen's booth, all smiles and nervous energy. I'm so glad you finally called, she said, sliding in across from him. I was starting to think you were never going to realize what we have. Jensen played it perfectly. Just engaged enough to keep her talking. They ordered food, and Julia went full seduction mode, leaning across the table, touching his hand every chance she got, laughing at everything he said like he was the funniest man alive. I've always felt this incredible connection between us, she was saying. Like we understand each other in ways other people don't. Jensen nodded, sipping his coffee. Damien never understood my ambitions, but you get it. You want the same things I want. Success, travel, the finer things in life. I know timing is complicated, Julia continued, lowering her voice to what she probably thought was a sultry whisper. But sometimes you have to take risks for the right person. That's when, ladies and gentlemen, Jensen's girlfriend walked in. Beautiful brunette, probably about Julia's age, wearing scrubs like she'd just finished a hospital shift. She spotted Jensen immediately and walked over with a confused smile. Jensen, you said you'd be done by 8. Who's this witch? Julia's face went from flirtatious to confused to absolutely murderous in about 3 seconds. Jensen, Julia, meet my girlfriend Jennifer. Jennifer, this is Julia, the coworker I told you about. The one I told you about. Julia was the crazy stalker chick he'd complained about at home. Are you serious? You brought her? Julia's voice was getting shrill. We've been together for 2 years, by the way, Jennifer said, sliding into the booth next to Jensen. You must be the one who's been calling him at all hours and showing up at his apartment building. Julia started sputtering. But you said you took me to expensive restaurants. Julia, I never took you anywhere, Jensen said calmly. You followed me to restaurants where I was having business meetings and tried to insert yourself into conversations. You showed me pictures of jewelry. I showed the entire office pictures of the engagement ring I bought for Jennifer last month. That's when Julia completely lost her stuff. You led me on! You gave me signals! You wanted me! The whole diner was staring now. Finn was getting every second of this meltdown in perfect HD. You destroyed my relationship. I left a good man for you. Finn couldn't help himself. My bro stood up and called out across the diner loud enough for the whole diner to hear, "Nope, you thought you could trade up. Turns out nobody wants to downgrade." That's when Julia noticed me. The look of pure shock and rage was absolutely priceless. "You!" she screamed, pointing at me like I was the devil himself. "What the heck are you doing here? You planned this. You set me up." Julia stood up from the booth and started walking toward me, but Jennifer wasn't done with her. "Excuse me, stalker girl," Jennifer called out. "We're not finished talking." Julia spun around. "What did you just call me?" "I called you a stalker, because that's what you are. You've been harassing my boyfriend for months, following him around like some pathetic groupie." "I'm not! I'm younger than you. I'm prettier than you. I make more money than you." Jennifer looked Julia up and down with the kind of cold assessment that only another woman can deliver. "Honey, you're having a public meltdown in a diner over a man who's never been interested in you. That's not successful. That's just sad." Julia lunged at her. I'm talking full-on Jerry Springer chaos. Screaming, clawing, trying to grab Jennifer's hair while Jennifer was laughing, and easily dodging Julia's tipsy attempts at violence. Jensen was trying to pull Jennifer away from the fight, while Finn was providing play-by-play commentary like he was calling a UFC match. And Julia goes for the hair, but whiffs completely. Jennifer with a beautiful dodge. Oh, and Julia's down. She tripped over her own desperation. The diner manager called security, who showed up and grabbed Julia while she was still screaming about how everyone had betrayed her and how she was the victim in all of this. As they were dragging her toward the door, she locked eyes with me one last time. "I hope you're happy," she screamed. "I hope this was worth destroying 3 years." Heh heh. "It was worth every freaking second," I called back. That night, Finn edited the entire confrontation into a TikTok masterpiece. Added music, slow-motion replays of Julia's failed attack on Jennifer, the whole thing. LOL. Julia discovers that fantasy relationships aren't real relationships. When keeping it 100% delusional goes wrong. The video got 80,000 views in the first 2 days. Comments were brutal and beautiful. "This is why you don't monkey branch relationships, ladies." Imagine fumbling a bag this hard over a complete fantasy. She really threw away a man who spent $12K on a ring for a dude who won't even make eye contact with her. Julia started sending me threatening texts, but I just screenshot them and added them to Finn's growing collection of evidence. Threats to key my truck, threats to show up at my job, even some vague stuff about making me pay for humiliating her. I forwarded everything to Jensen and Jennifer, just in case Julia escalated her stalking behavior. "She's completely lost it," Jensen texted back. HR suspended her indefinitely pending a psychological evaluation. They're worried about workplace violence. Perfect. Julia had gone from "I can do better" to unemployed and possibly institutionalized in less than a month. But the real satisfaction came from watching her online presence implode. She'd started posting increasingly unhinged rants about men who punish women for having standards, and society that protects emotional abusers. Her friend group was fracturing too. Alora had completely distanced herself after our conversation. A couple of other girls from their crew started posting subtle subtweets about friends who blame everyone else for their problems. Only Hazel was still riding or dying for Julia, but even she seemed to be getting tired of the constant drama. Her supportive comments got shorter and less frequent as Julia's posts got more desperate and crazy. 3 weeks after the diner incident, I got a text from John, Julia's dad. "Damien, I hope you don't mind me reaching out, but Elise and I wanted to let you know Julia moved back home. She lost her job and couldn't afford rent anymore. Sorry to hear that, but it's not really my problem anymore. We know. We just wanted you to know that we told her she's not welcome here until she gets professional help. We won't enable her behavior." Even her parents had cut her off. She had literally burned every bridge in her life chasing a fantasy. 6 months later, I'm living my absolute best life. That $12,000 I got back from the ring, used it as a down payment on a nice used Corvette. 2020 Stingray. Low miles, absolutely perfect condition. Every time I drive it, I think about Julia calling me a Honda Civic and laugh my butt off. Finn and I expanded the poker game into a full social circle. 8 regular guys, rotating weekly games, occasional golf outings, fantasy football league. Real friendships built on mutual respect. I've been dating too. Nothing serious yet, but it's incredible how much easier dating is when you're not trying to live up to someone else's impossible standards. Last week, I got a text from an unknown number. "Damien, it's Julia." I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize I made some mistakes. I'm in therapy now and working on myself. I was hoping we could talk sometime. I miss you. I screenshot it and sent it to Finn with the caption, and there it is. Blocked the number and forgot about it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how everything went down, if I think I was too harsh, too vindictive, too unwilling to forgive. Heck no. Julia showed me exactly who she was when she thought I wasn't listening. I gave her exactly what she said she wanted, the freedom to find someone better. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 4. This story is titled, Mom asked me to cancel my wedding because Golden's sister would be hurt, so I uninvited them. Hi everyone. Before we dive in, a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and makes sure you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. Hi Reddit. You'd think announcing your engagement would be one of the happiest moments of your life, right? Yeah, me too. Turns out, for me, it was just the starting gun for a whole mess of drama I never signed up for. I'm Emily, 30F, and my fiancé Ryan, 31M, proposed to me last March. We've been together for 6 years. He's my best friend, my partner, and genuinely the most supportive person I know. When he got down on one knee, it felt like everything had fallen into place. But as soon as I shared the news, my mom and half-sister Cassie, 24F, decided to make my engagement and wedding their personal battleground. A little backstory here. My mom married my stepdad Tom when I was 5. Cassie is their daughter, and while we grew up together, we've always been more like acquaintances who tolerate each other than actual sisters. The thing is, Cassie has always had this weird competitive streak when it comes to me. It started when we were kids. She'd throw a fit if I got a better grade, or if one of my relatives complimented me. As we got older, the stakes just got higher. I went to college on a scholarship, while Cassie didn't go at all. I've been with Ryan for years, while she's bounced from one messy relationship to another. And now that I'm engaged, she's acting like my happiness is some personal vendetta against her. Anyway, Ryan proposed last March during a quiet weekend at home, and we decided on a January wedding. We wanted something small and intimate, a cozy ceremony with about 70 guests. It felt perfect for us. I was so excited to start planning, and I thought my family would be too. Boy, was I wrong. When I called my mom to tell her the news, her first response wasn't excitement. It was, "Oh, Cassie's not going to like this." I kind of laughed it off, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. Apparently, my engagement was going to hurt Cassie's feelings. Why? Because she was single and trying to figure things out. I brushed it aside at first, thinking it was just a weird comment. But then, a few weeks later, Cassie announced she was getting married. To a guy she'd been dating for 3 months. Now, I try not to judge other people's choices, but this felt off. Cassie has always been impulsive, but getting married after 3 months? To a guy none of us really knew? It didn't sit right with me, but I kept my mouth shut. I figured it was her life, her decision, and not my business. Fast forward to July. Cassie's whirlwind marriage blew up as fast as it started. Her husband, Jake, cheated on her, with her best friend no less. 2 months after their wedding, she filed for divorce. The whole situation was messy and heartbreaking, and I genuinely felt bad for her. I tried to be supportive, but every time I reached out, I got the cold shoulder. It felt like she was angry at me, but I couldn't figure out why. Then it hit me. She didn't want my support. She wanted to blame me. From what I've pieced together, Cassie thinks I somehow triggered her rushed marriage. Like my engagement announcement was some kind of challenge she needed to win. And when her marriage fell apart, I guess she decided it was easier to resent me than to take responsibility for her own decisions. By the time fall rolled around, things were tense. Cassie and I hadn't really spoken since her divorce, and Mom was acting weird. Every time I brought up wedding planning, she'd get quiet or change the subject. It felt like she was avoiding the topic, but I didn't push it. I figured she just didn't want to talk about weddings because of Cassie's situation. I should have seen the signs. Let me tell you, nothing prepares you for the sheer absurdity of being guilt-tripped about your own wedding. I thought planning a wedding would be stressful because of logistics or budgets, not because my own family would turn it into some twisted competition. But here we are. So, it's mid-November, and Ryan and I just sent out our wedding invitations. I was super excited, finally feeling like everything was coming together. That excitement didn't last long because 2 days later, I got the call. It was my mom. I remember thinking it was a bit strange because she rarely calls me. She's more of a text once a month kind of person. But I answered, figuring she might want to chat about the wedding. I should have known better. The conversation started innocently enough. She asked how I was doing, how Ryan was, and then casually slipped in, "So, you're really going through with the wedding?" At first, I thought she was just confirming the date or something. Yeah, of course, everything's set. We've booked the venue, caterer, flowers. Most of it's paid for. That's when she sighed. Not a normal sigh, a loud, exaggerated, dramatic sigh that practically screamed, "You're about to ruin someone's life." "Well," she said, dragging out the word like she was about to drop some life-changing wisdom. "I've been thinking about Cassie, and I really think you should reconsider." I paused, genuinely confused. Reconsider what? She hesitated, like she was gearing up for a speech. "I just don't think it's a good time for a wedding, Emily. Cassie's still so heartbroken from the divorce. Having a big celebration like this, so soon after everything she's been through, it feels a little insensitive. I honestly thought I misheard her." "Wait, you think I should cancel my wedding? For Cassie?" "Well, yes," she said, like it was the most reasonable request in the world. "She's been through so much, and seeing you get married so soon after her divorce, it's going to hurt her. A lot." I was stunned. I didn't even know how to respond. "Mom, we've been planning this wedding for almost a year. The venue's booked, the deposits are paid. How can you ask me to just cancel it?" She didn't miss a beat. "You could always do something small. A church ceremony, maybe, with just immediate family. That way, you still get married, but it's not such a big production. You wouldn't be flaunting it." Flaunting it? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, this isn't about flaunting anything. It's about celebrating my relationship with Ryan. We've been together for 6 years. This is our day." She sighed again, heavier this time. "I just think if you really loved your sister, you'd do this for her. She needs time to heal, and a big wedding is going to make things worse for her." At this point, I was furious, but I tried to stay calm. "Mom, I get that Cassie's going through a rough time, but this has nothing to do with her. Ryan and I have been planning this for so long. It's not fair to ask us to change everything because of her choices." She didn't like that. Her choices? Emily, she didn't choose to have her husband cheat on her. She didn't choose to have her life fall apart. Yeah, but she did choose to marry a guy she barely knew after 3 months. That was the wrong thing to say. Mom completely lost it, accusing me of being cruel and selfish, of not understanding what Cassie's been through. She even threw in a classic, "I thought I raised you better than this." At that point, I couldn't deal anymore. "Mom, I'm not canceling my wedding. End of discussion." I hung up, shaking with anger. I immediately called Ryan and told him everything. He was just as baffled as I was. "Who asks their own daughter to cancel her wedding for someone else's divorce?" he said. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but of course, it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, Mom doubled down on her campaign to guilt me into canceling or scaling down the wedding. She'd call me every few days, always with some variation of the same argument. "Cassie's heartbroken. You're being insensitive. A small wedding would mean so much to the family." At one point, she even tried to rope Ryan into it. She called him directly, saying, "You're such a thoughtful person, Ryan. I know you'll understand why this is important for Cassie." Luckily, he shut that down immediately, telling her we were sticking with our original plans. But then Cassie got involved. She started texting me, making passive-aggressive comments like, "Must be nice to have everything go perfectly for you." And, "Don't you think it's a little soon for a big celebration?" She even brought up the date, saying, "January feels like such a weird time for a wedding. Are you sure you didn't pick it to rub it in my face?" Rub it in her face? I couldn't believe the audacity. I tried ignoring her at first, but she just kept escalating. She started calling me, leaving these long, guilt-trippy voicemails about how hard it was for her to even think about weddings, and how my insensitivity was making her healing process so much harder. The worst part was how my mom and Cassie seemed to feed off each other. Mom would call and say something like, "Cassie was crying all night thinking about your wedding." And then Cassie would text me the next day saying, "Mom's so upset about how you're handling this." It was exhausting. I was at my breaking point. I couldn't believe how far they were willing to go to make my wedding about them. I knew I had to draw a line, but I wasn't sure how yet. This was the moment I realized just how toxic their behavior was. This wasn't about Cassie's divorce or her feelings. It was about control. They wanted me to put my life on hold to cater to their insecurities, and I was done letting them dictate my happiness. By December, things had officially spiraled out of control. Cassie was no longer content to sulk in private or throw passive-aggressive texts my way. She was now on a mission to drag my name through the mud with anyone who'd listen. And honestly, I was getting whiplash trying to keep up with all her stunts. It started small. I heard from my cousin Megan, bless her for being the family informant, that Cassie had been calling up relatives to warn them about me. According to her, I was flaunting my wedding in her face to humiliate her. She even claimed I had deliberately chosen January, knowing it would be too soon after her divorce for her to emotionally handle it. I couldn't wrap my head around the logic. My engagement had been set months before she even got married, let alone divorced. How on earth was I supposed to predict her life would fall apart when I was sending out save the dates? But logic doesn't seem to matter much when someone's determined to play the victim. Her stories got more dramatic with each retelling. Megan told me Cassie was saying things like, Emily always thinks she's better than me. She's just rubbing her perfect little life in my face because she knows I'm struggling. The worst part? Some family members actually bought into her narrative. My mom, of course, was her biggest cheerleader. She started calling me almost daily to ask if I had reconsidered canceling or scaling back the wedding. Cassie's still so fragile, she'd say. She cried all night after seeing your wedding invitations. You really don't need a big event. Can't you just do something simple? I stood firm every single time, but it was exhausting. The real breaking point came at a family gathering on Christmas. Ryan and I had been invited to a dinner at my aunt's house, and I thought it would be a nice way to decompress after all the wedding stress. Of course, Cassie and Mom were there too, which should have been my first red flag. Things were tense from the start. Cassie barely acknowledged me, but every time I mentioned the wedding, she'd huff or roll her eyes. At one point, I was chatting with my aunt about flowers, and Cassie loudly muttered, "Must be nice to waste so much money on a party when some people can barely pick up the pieces of their lives." I ignored her, but it was obvious she wanted a reaction. Eventually, the conversation shifted, and I started to relax a bit. That is, until Cassie suddenly burst into tears in the middle of the living room. She was full-on sobbing, shaking her head, and muttering, "I can't believe how cruel people can be." Everyone froze. My aunt rushed over to comfort her, asking what was wrong. That's when Cassie launched into her performance. "It's just so hard," she said through her tears. "I've been through so much this year, and now I have to sit here and listen to Emily talk about her perfect wedding like nothing else matters. She knows how much pain I'm in, but she doesn't care." My mom chimed in immediately, rubbing Cassie's back like she was the victim of some terrible injustice. "She's right, Emily. You need to be more considerate. You have no idea how hard this has been for her." That's when I lost it. I had been holding my tongue for weeks, but I couldn't take it anymore. "This wedding has nothing to do with Cassie," I said, trying to stay calm. "Ryan and I have been planning this for a year. If she's upset, that's not my fault. Maybe she should take some responsibility for rushing into a bad marriage instead of blaming me for her problems." The room went dead silent. My aunt looked like she wanted to disappear into the couch, and Cassie's tears immediately turned to rage. "How dare you?" she snapped. "You don't know what it's like to have your life fall apart. You've had everything handed to you, your scholarship, your boyfriend, your perfect little life. You've never had to struggle for anything." I stood up, shaking with anger. "You're right, Cassie. I don't know what it's like to have my life fall apart. But that's because I don't make impulsive decisions just to compete with other people. Maybe if you spent less time being bitter and more time working on yourself, you wouldn't be in this situation." At that point, Ryan grabbed my hand and said, "We're leaving." I didn't argue. On the drive home, I kept replaying the conversation in my head, second-guessing whether I'd been too harsh. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I had every right to stand up for myself. Cassie had been pushing me for weeks, and I was done letting her turn my wedding into her pity party. What really stuck with me, though, was how Mom had jumped to Cassie's defense without hesitation. Not once did she try to understand my side, or even acknowledge how much stress this whole situation was causing me. It felt like she had chosen her favorite, and it wasn't me. The next day, I got a text from Mom. "You owe your sister an apology for what you said last night. She's been through so much, and you were unnecessarily cruel." I didn't reply. I was done apologizing for things that weren't my fault. By this point, it's clear that Cassie isn't going to back down, and Mom isn't going to stop enabling her. I don't know what their next move will be, but I know I have to start preparing for the worst. I'll update you soon if anything comes up. Update 1. Hey again. Thank you so much for your comments and support on my last post. Your advice really helped me. So, after the disaster at the family dinner, I knew I had to draw a hard line. Cassie and my mom weren't just being unreasonable. They were actively trying to sabotage my happiness. Ignoring it clearly wasn't working, and every attempt to defend myself just seemed to fuel their drama. I realized the only way to move forward was to completely shut them out of the wedding. That decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. 2 days after the dinner, I sat down with Ryan and laid everything out. I think I need to uninvite them, I said, feeling a lump in my throat. They're just going to make things worse if they're there. Ryan nodded immediately. I've been thinking the same thing. It sucks, but this is your day. Our day. And you deserve to enjoy it without worrying about their next move. Hearing his support made me feel a little better, but the thought of actually cutting off my mom and sister from my wedding was daunting. It wasn't just about them. It was about the ripple effect it might have on the rest of the family. Still, I knew I couldn't let their toxic behavior overshadow everything Ryan and I had worked so hard to plan. So, I drafted an email. I kept it short and factual. I explained that their actions over the past few months, spreading rumors, guilt-tripping me, and creating unnecessary drama, had made it clear they weren't supportive of my wedding. I told them that their behavior had caused me significant stress, and for my own peace of mind, I had decided to uninvite them. I hit send and immediately felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Within hours, the responses started rolling in. Mom was the first to reply, and let me tell you, it was a doozy. She called me cold-hearted and accused me of tearing the family apart. Her email was filled with dramatic phrases like, I never thought my own daughter would betray me like this, and you've chosen a man over your own blood. She even threw in a line about how my dad would be disappointed in me if he were still alive. Classic guilt trip tactics. I didn't reply. Next came Cassie. Her response was exactly what I expected, full of anger and self-pity. She accused me of being jealous of her, still not sure what I'm supposed to be jealous of, and claimed I was punishing her for being honest about her feelings. She ended her email with, "You'll regret this when you realize you've destroyed this family." I didn't reply to her either. The fallout didn't stop there. Over the next few days, I started getting calls and texts from other family members, mostly the ones Mom and Cassie had already poisoned against me. My uncle called to tell me I was being immature and should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. A cousin I barely speak to left a voicemail saying, I can't believe you do something like this to your own mother. At first, I felt overwhelmed by the backlash. But then, something amazing happened. The people who actually mattered started showing up for me. My dad's sister, Aunt Laura, called me to say she was proud of me for standing up for myself. You've put up with their nonsense for long enough, she said. It's about time you put your foot down. And my cousin Megan, who had been keeping me updated on Cassie's antics, sent me a long text saying, don't let them get to you. Everyone who really knows you is on your side. Even my godmother, who's one of the most no-nonsense people I know, called to tell me I was doing the right thing. Your wedding should be about love and celebration, not drama and bitterness, she said. Their support was like a balm for my soul. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't alone in this fight. But of course, Mom and Cassie weren't going to let it go quietly. About a week after I sent the email, I got another call from Megan. You're not going to believe this, she said, sounding both amused and annoyed. Cassie's telling people you uninvited her because you're threatened by her. I couldn't help but laugh. Threatened by what, exactly? Apparently, she's been saying you're worried Ryan has feelings for her, Megan said. She claims he's been flirting with her and you found out, so you're trying to get rid of her to save face. It was so ridiculous. I didn't even know how to respond. We both knew there was zero truth to anything she was saying. Still, it was infuriating that she was trying to drag him into her web of lies. That's just desperate, I said. No one's going to believe that. Honestly, most people don't, Megan said. But you know how she is. She's going to keep spinning the story until she finds someone gullible enough to take her side. I decided not to waste any more energy worrying about Cassie's delusions. At this point, I was focused on protecting my peace and making sure my wedding day went off without a hitch. To that end, Ryan and I sat down to go over the guest list and finalize all the details. We reached out to the venue to make sure they had our backs in case Cassie or Mom tried to pull anything. We also hired a couple of security guards to keep things under control, something I never thought I'd have to do for my own wedding, but here we were. Through it all, Ryan was my rock. He reminded me that this was our day and that we didn't owe anyone an explanation for protecting our happiness. By the time New Year's rolled around, I felt like I was finally regaining control. Cassie and Mom could spin their narratives all they wanted, but they weren't going to ruin this for me. Thanks for sticking around until here. I'll update you soon. Update 2. I know it hasn't been long since my last update, but what happened is something I absolutely needed to tell you about immediately. If you thought Cassie's antics couldn't get any worse, buckle up, because this one takes the cake. By the time January rolled around, I thought I'd seen every shade of her jealousy, pettiness, and downright manipulative behavior. But what she tried to pull next left me absolutely floored. and honestly, a little disgusted. It all started with a weird text Ryan got one evening. We were sitting on the couch, finally relaxing after a stressful day of finalizing wedding details, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I noticed his face immediately go from relaxed to tense. "What is it?" I asked, already bracing myself for drama. "It's Cassie," he said, showing me the message. The text read, "Hey Ryan, I really need someone to talk to. I know you probably think I'm a terrible person right now, but I'm really struggling, and I feel like you're the only one who understands. Can we meet up?" At first, I didn't know how to react. I mean, on the surface, it seemed innocent enough, but knowing Cassie, and knowing how hard she'd been working to cause problems, I had a bad feeling. Ryan must have sensed it too because he didn't reply right away. Instead, he turned to me and said, "I don't like this. It feels off." "Because it is off," I said. "She's never even liked you. Why would she suddenly want to talk to you about her feelings?" We agreed it was best to ignore her, but the messages kept coming. Over the next few days, she sent Ryan a string of increasingly desperate texts. She talked about how lonely she felt, how she had no one else to turn to, and how much she appreciated his kindness during such a difficult time. Let me remind you, Ryan had never had any kind of meaningful conversation with Cassie. He'd always been polite to her, of course, but they weren't close by any stretch of the imagination. So this sudden outpouring of gratitude felt calculated. Ryan was as creeped out as I was, but we both decided it was better to wait and see what her endgame was before responding. And sure enough, it didn't take long for her true intentions to come to light. Later, Ryan got another message, and this one was so blatant it made my blood boil. Cassie wrote, "I've been thinking a lot about you lately. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. I feel like we have a connection that Emily doesn't understand. I don't know what to do with these feelings." I was furious, not just at her for being so brazen, but also at the sheer disrespect of it all. She knew we were getting married in a matter of days, and here she was, trying to wedge herself between us with some cheap tricks. Ryan, bless him, immediately showed me the message and asked, "How do you want to handle this?" I took a deep breath and said, "Let's not give her the satisfaction of a direct response. Block her number, but before you do, take screenshots of everything." He did exactly that, and we kept the screenshots as receipts, just in case she decided to try spinning some wild narrative later. The next morning, I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. I didn't respond to her directly. There was no point in engaging with someone so desperate for attention. But I did send an email to my mom and a few other close family members, laying out what had happened. I kept it straightforward, attaching the screenshots and explaining that this was the proof that I was right to uninvite Cassie from the wedding. "This behavior is toxic and manipulative," I wrote. "I've done everything I can to keep the peace, but this crosses a line, and I hope now you understand why I excluded her before." The responses were mixed. My mom, predictably, came to Cassie's defense. She claimed I must have misunderstood her intentions, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. She even had the nerve to suggest that Ryan might have misread the messages. "I can't believe you'd accuse your own sister of something so horrible," Mom wrote. "Cassie's just going through a tough time, and you're making it all about you." I rolled my eyes so hard I almost sprained something. At this point, I wasn't even surprised. But other family members were much more supportive. Megan, my cousin who'd been in my corner from the start, called me immediately after reading the email. "Are you serious?" she said. "I knew Cassie was a piece of work, but this is next level. Good for you for cutting her off." My dad's sister, Aunt Laura, was just as outraged. "You're absolutely right to keep her out of the wedding," she said. "She's proven time and again that she doesn't respect you, and this just confirms it. Their support meant the world to me, but I'd be lying if I said it completely erased the hurt. Cassie's stunt wasn't just disrespectful, it was humiliating. It felt like she was trying to undermine everything Ryan and I had built together, and I couldn't understand why. Was it jealousy? Spite? Some twisted need for attention? Maybe all of the above. Whatever her reasons, I knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to win. With just a few days left until the wedding, I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't let Cassie or Mom ruin this for me. I also made sure to double down on security measures for the big day. I reached out to the venue and gave them a heads up about the situation, letting them know Cassie and Mom were explicitly uninvited. I even hired an extra security guard, just in case they decided to show up anyway. It felt a little extreme, but after everything they'd pulled, I wasn't taking any chances. I now feel more prepared than ever to face whatever nonsense they might try to throw my way. Cassie's dirty tricks might have shaken me, but they didn't break me. If anything, they only made me more determined to stand my ground and protect my peace. Thanks again for all your support through all this. I'll update you soon. Update 3. Hey again. Let's hope it's the last time you hear about my family drama. Let me tell you, I thought I had prepared myself for every possible scenario leading up to my wedding. But nothing quite prepares you for the moment when your own family tries to sabotage the happiest day of your life. The morning of the wedding started off beautifully. The venue looked magical with all the flowers and decorations we'd picked out over the past year. The weather was perfect for our ceremony, and my bridesmaids kept me laughing and relaxed while we got ready. Ryan and I had agreed to do a first look before the ceremony, so once I was dressed, I stepped outside to meet him in the garden. The second I saw him standing there, looking every bit as nervous and excited as I felt, all the stress and drama melted away. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, and nothing else mattered. Or so I thought. About 30 minutes before the ceremony was set to begin, I was back in the bridal suite doing some last-minute touch-ups when my maid of honor, Amanda, came rushing in. She looked flustered, which immediately set off alarm bells. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "Cassie and your mom are here." My stomach dropped. "What? How? I thought security was handling it." "They're trying to get in," Amanda said. "Security stopped them at the gate, but they're causing a huge scene." "Of course they were." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "What are they saying?" Amanda hesitated, which told me it wasn't good. "Your mom's crying and saying she just wants to see her daughter get married. Cassie's, well, she's screaming about how you're a horrible person and how you don't deserve this day." I felt my blood start to boil. It wasn't enough for them to make the months leading up to the wedding a nightmare. They had to try to ruin the actual day too. "What do you want me to do?" Amanda asked. "Nothing," I said firmly. "Let security handle it. If we go out there, it's just going to give them what they want." Amanda nodded and left to check in with the guards. Meanwhile, I sat down and tried to collect myself. I could hear my mom and Cassie faintly in the distance, shouting and arguing with security, and it took everything in me not to march out there and give them a piece of my mind. A few minutes later, Amanda came back with an update. "They're refusing to leave. The venue manager offered to call the police, but they're worried it'll cause an even bigger scene." I groaned. This was exactly why I'd uninvited them in the first place. "Do you want me to tell Ryan?" Amanda asked. I shook my head. "No, he doesn't need this stress right now. Just make sure they don't get anywhere near the ceremony." Thankfully, security was on top of it. They managed to keep my mom and Cassie contained to the parking lot, and eventually, the venue staff called a ride service to take them away. But not before Cassie shouted loud enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear, "You'll regret this, Emily. You'll regret cutting out your own family." Once they were gone, I took another deep breath and told myself to let it go. They were out of sight now, and I wasn't going to let them steal my joy. The ceremony itself was everything I'd dreamed of and more. Standing up there with Ryan, surrounded by our closest friends and family, the supportive ones at least, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. This was what mattered. Not the drama, not the bitterness, just this moment with the people who truly cared about us. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, I started hearing bits and pieces about what had gone down with my mom and Cassie. Apparently, they'd been shouting accusations at the security guards, saying I was brainwashed by Ryan, and that the family would never forgive me for excluding them. A few guests even overheard them from the parking lot, which was embarrassing, but most people just rolled their eyes and brushed it off. My dad's sister, Aunt Laura, came up to me during dinner and said, "I'm so proud of you for standing your ground. They showed their true colors today, and everyone sees it now." That was a common sentiment throughout the night. Cousins, friends, even some of my mom's old friends pulled me aside to tell me they were on my side. It felt like a collective reckoning. People finally realized how toxic my mom and Cassie had been, and they weren't having it. The rest of the evening was a blur of laughter, dancing, and pure joy. Ryan and I shared our first dance under twinkling lights. My maid of honor gave a hilarious and heartfelt toast, and my dad's best friend, who's practically an uncle to me, brought the house down with a story about how he once caught Ryan trying to sneak out of a family barbecue with a plate of ribs. By the time the night ended, I felt lighter than I had in months. Cassie and my mom hadn't won. Their attempts to ruin the day had only highlighted how much love and support Ryan and I had from the people who actually mattered. When I got back to the hotel that night, I checked my phone and saw I had a dozen missed calls and texts from my mom. I didn't bother reading them. I was done letting her or Cassie take up space in my life. Cutting them out completely was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, but standing there with Ryan, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us, I knew it was the right one. Thanks again for sharing your thoughts with me throughout this mess. I really do appreciate it. I'll let you know if there's an after-wedding drama, Let's hope not. I'm so done, lol. Update 4. Hey Reddit, you won't believe what happened. About a week after the wedding, I got a call from my cousin Megan, who, as usual, was the first to deliver the family gossip. You're not going to believe what just happened, she said, sounding way more excited than concerned. I sighed. What now? Cassie and your mom had a huge fight, Megan said. Like epic level fight. And get this. Your mom kicked her out of the house. I almost dropped my phone. Wait. What? What happened? Megan was more than happy to fill me in. Apparently, after the wedding, Cassie had been sulking around my mom's house, stewing over the fact that her grand plan to ruin my day had failed. According to Megan, she was blaming everyone. Me, Ryan, the security guards, even some random cousin who apparently didn't try hard enough to stop me. The real explosion happened when she turned on my mom. Cassie accused her of not doing enough to stop the wedding. She started screaming about how it was mom's fault that I'd gone through with it. That mom should have been more forceful in convincing me to cancel. Mom, who has always coddled Cassie no matter how ridiculous she's been, finally hit her breaking point. Megan said mom yelled back, telling Cassie she was tired of the drama and that she was an adult who needed to take responsibility for her own life. Cassie didn't take that well. She apparently went on a full-blown rant, accusing mom of failing her as a parent and choosing me over her. It got so bad that mom finally told her to pack her things and leave. When Megan told me all this, I couldn't help but laugh, not because I thought it was funny, but because of the sheer irony of it. After months of mom defending Cassie and taking her side, it all came back to bite her. She really kicked her out? I asked, still trying to process it. Yup, Megan said. Cassie's staying with a friend for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if she comes crawling back in a few weeks. The whole situation felt like karma in action. In the end, their toxicity turned inward, and they ended up taking it out on each other. I wish I could say I felt bad for either of them, but honestly, I didn't. After everything they put me through, it felt like poetic justice. As for me, I'm done with both of them. I've blocked their numbers, muted them on social media, and made it clear to the rest of the family that I'm not interested in hearing about their latest antics. Ryan and I are focusing on starting this new chapter of our lives together, and I couldn't be happier. Thanks for reading, and to everyone who supported me throughout this madness. Whether it was a kind comment or a message of encouragement, thank you. You helped me stay strong when it mattered most. Story 5. She staged a breakup with her friends to humiliate me. She smirked, "This isn't working out." I told her, "I agree, enjoy your single life." They expected me to beg. Instead, she ended humiliated, abandoned, finished. Hey Reddit. So, this is one of those stories I never thought I'd be typing out. But here we are. Let's just say my girlfriend thought it'd be funny to put on a show at a party. A show where I was supposed to play the fool. Thing is, she didn't realize I already knew the script, and what went down that night ended up flipping everything on its head. Mandy and I had been together for about 8 months, which is apparently the expiration date for women like her. The first 4 months weren't bad. She was sweet, funny, and had that kind of energy that made nights feel less boring. I won't lie, she was hot and knew it, which sometimes worked in my favor and other times made her act like she was auditioning for The Bachelor every time we went out. Over time, though, she got hooked on attention like it was a full-time job. Suddenly, everything was about likes and views and content. Me? I'm not that guy. I don't need to post a video every time I eat lunch. I like living my life without pretending I'm on a reality show. Mandy, on the other hand, loved the spotlight. If she walked into a room and nobody noticed, she'd act like the place was broken. By the time our friend Owen's birthday rolled around, things were fine, I guess. We weren't fighting, but the spark felt more like static electricity. I figured we just needed some time together. Maybe a trip or even just a normal date without her friends tagging along. But I didn't expect what I overheard that night. That Friday, I got to Owen's place early. Mandy had said she'd come with me, but around 4 she texted that she was running late. She and her friends were still getting ready. Typical. She loved making an entrance, like the world stopped spinning until she showed up. By 7, while I was still setting up, I heard voices coming from the small bathroom by the kitchen. The door wasn't shut all the way, and Mandy's laugh carried through like it owned the place. At first, I thought it was just girl talk, but then I caught a few words that made me freeze mid-step. Okay, so I'll say something like this isn't working anymore, and then you guys position yourselves around the room. Mandy's voice chirped, like she was planning a magic trick. I leaned closer without making a sound. Make sure you can see his face when I do it, she added, practically buzzing. I want to catch every expression. Gigi's voice popped up next. She'd been glued to Mandy since high school. Oh my God. This is going to be hilarious. I stopped moving completely. My brain was still trying to connect the dots. Addie, her coworker, chimed in, "My cousin did this with her boyfriend. He literally begged her on his knees in front of everyone. She made him promise a trip to Europe before she took him back. So make sure you ask for something good as an ultimatum to get you back." "See? It works," Mandy said, with the kind of confidence you only hear from people about to ruin their own lives. Martin's gotten way too comfortable lately. He barely even tries anymore. When's the last time he surprised me with flowers or planned something big? I swear my blood went cold. They weren't just talking about me. They were plotting to use me as the main character in Mandy's circus act. Then Alice, the new friend from Mandy's yoga class, the one always pushing toxic empowerment quotes, asked, "But what if he just agrees with you? What if he doesn't fight back?" Mandy laughed in that dismissive way she did whenever she thought she was the smartest in the room. "Trust me, no guy lets his girlfriend walk away in front of everyone without making a scene. His ego won't let him. Plus, Martin loves me way too much to just give up." They all giggled. Gigi said something about recording it for Instagram. Addie suggested captions like, "Testing my boyfriend's love in public." And Alice threw in, "This'll probably go viral." I felt my jaw tighten. Viral. That was the prize. Not fixing our relationship. Not communication. Just clout. Alice's voice got sharper, like she was the director of this twisted little play. "Wait until the party gets going." Around 9, when everyone's settled. That way the audience is perfect. Sober enough to pay attention, tipsy enough to enjoy the drama. "Perfect," Mandy said. "And remember, back me up if he tries to flip it on me. Tell him any good boyfriend would fight harder. Really sell it." "Oh, we've got you," Alice assured. "He's going to scramble so hard. Men are so predictable when their security gets threatened. All men are pathetic like that." Gigi snorted. "And if he gets angry, even better. We'll make him look like the bad guy." I heard the sound of makeup bags zipping shut, the shuffle of heels, and then the door creaked. I slipped back into the kitchen, chairs in hand, acting like I'd been busy the whole time. When Mandy came bouncing up to me with that fake bright smile and planted a kiss on my cheek, all I could think was, "You really think I'm going to play your puppet tonight?" "Sorry, I didn't help," she said, like she hadn't just plotted my public execution. "We got caught up getting ready." "No problem," I said calmly, studying her like she was a stranger. Her eyes were lit up with excitement, her friends exchanging smug little glances behind her. They thought they were about to pull off the prank of the year. I smiled back, but inside I was already building my counterattack. If Mandy wanted a performance tonight, she was going to get one, just not the one she scripted. That line kept looping in my head while I finished helping Owen set up. Balloons, snack tables, moving furniture, busy work that kept my hands moving while my brain replayed every word I'd overheard in that bathroom. They thought I was going to be their little puppet. They thought they had me figured out. Mandy, especially. She floated around Owen's house like she was auditioning for Queen Bee of the Year. Every time someone new walked in, she had to make a scene. Big smile, loud laugh, arms wide like she was handing out blessings. Her minions trailed behind her, smirking, already glancing at me like the prank was a lock. I kept my cool, smiled, nodded, carried another chair. Inside, I was ice cold. At one point, Mandy leaned into Gigi and said just loud enough for me, and a few unlucky eavesdroppers, to catch, "I already told some people I might be starting a new life tonight." Starting a new life, like she was about to run off and join the circus. The entitlement in her voice almost made me laugh. She wasn't just planning a staged breakup anymore, she was previewing it, hyping it up like it was the main event. And people noticed. Guests who'd been to Owen's parties before kept sneaking looks between us. They weren't sure what was off, but they could feel it. That kind of energy spreads fast in a room, but the real gut punch was yet to come. About half an hour later, while Owen and I were messing with the speaker setup, I looked over and saw Mandy across the room. She wasn't with Gigi or Addie. She wasn't pretending to be interested in the decorations. She was leaned in close to some tall stranger I'd never seen before, hand on his arm, tossing her hair back like she was auditioning for a shampoo commercial, laughing too hard at whatever basic thing he said. It didn't take a genius to figure out what I was looking at. I nudged Owen with my elbow. "Who's that guy?" Owen squinted. I think he came with one of Addie's co-workers? Don't really know him." He shrugged. "Friend of a friend." "Right. Friend of a friend. Sure." That's when everything clicked. Mandy had already bragged to her girls earlier about maybe being single tonight, and now here was Tallboy, conveniently hanging out in the middle of her spotlight. Coincidence? Please. She didn't just plan a breakup stunt for clout. She brought in a backup dancer. It hit me then. She wasn't testing me. She was replacing me. That little flirty laugh she gave him made my blood boil for about 2 seconds. Then I smiled to myself. If she wanted to line up her next move before the curtain even went up, that was her problem. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me jealous or insecure. She could dig her own grave, and I'd happily hand her the shovel. The funny part? She kept sneaking glances at me while she was with him, like she wanted me to notice. Like my reaction was part of the performance, too. She really thought this was a stage and everyone was in her play. What she didn't realize was that the audience was already starting to smell something rotten. People were whispering, heads tilting, trying to piece together why Mandy was acting like she was both the host and the star of a reality show. One girl from my friend group walked past me and muttered, "What's up with Mandy tonight? She's acting weird." I just shrugged again. Guess we'll find out. Inside, though, I was grinning. The more she hyped it up, the harder she was setting herself up for the fall. And with Tallboy hanging around, it wasn't just going to be humiliating. It was going to be brutal. By the time 8:30 rolled around, the house was packed. Music at the right volume, conversations buzzing, the food table nearly empty. Perfect conditions. Mandy had been floating around with her little entourage, positioning themselves like chess pieces on a board. Gigi was casually near the couch with her phone out, angled toward the center of the room. Addie had hers in selfie mode but tilted just enough to record. Alice was pretending to chat with 2 random guests, but her eyes kept darting back toward me and Mandy, like she was a referee waiting for kickoff. And then there was the backup guy, standing tall, arms crossed, watching me like he already thought he'd won something. I caught his stare once, nodded politely, and went back to my drink. The look on his face told me everything. He thought Mandy was about to dump me, and he'd be the rebound hero. If only he knew. The stage was set, phones out, audience buzzing, Mandy dead center, waiting for her big scene. The difference was, I wasn't her puppet. I was the guy holding the scissors, ready to cut all her strings at once. By 9 o'clock, you could feel it. Everyone sensed Mandy had something planned, even if they didn't know what. That smug confidence radiating off her wasn't subtle. Gigi and Addie had their phones angled, like undercover paparazzi. Alice was posted up near the snack table, eyes locked on me like she was waiting for the first punch in a boxing match. Mandy stood in the middle of the living room, hands clasped in front of her like she was delivering a TED Talk. People slowly turned toward her, conversations fading. And then, in that fake, serious voice she must have practiced in the mirror, she started. "Martin, we need to talk," she announced. Her voice carried just enough to cut through the music. I could practically see the captions she was imagining in her head. "When you test your man's love in front of everyone." I set my drink down on the nearest table and looked at her calmly. "Sure. What's on your mind?" That wasn't in her script. She blinked for a second before regaining her composure. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, pausing like she wanted the whole room to lean in. "About us, and I don't think this is working anymore. You're not on my level." The room went dead silent. Even the music felt quieter, like the playlist knew this was her big scene. I saw Gigi's phone tilt slightly, making sure to get both our faces in frame. I nodded slowly, like I was processing this heavy revelation for the first time. "You're absolutely right," I said evenly. Her face twitched. "What? You said it's not working anymore." "I believe you." Then I looked her dead in the eye. "Actually, do me a favor. Hand me the keys to my apartment. I'll pack your stuff and drop it off this weekend. No need for you to swing by." The color drained from her face. I kept my tone steady, calm, almost casual. "Enjoy the single life, Mandy." And with that, I turned and started walking toward the door. The silence was deafening. You could hear the bass line thumping in the background, but nobody said a word. Not a cough, not a shuffle, just pure shock. Behind me, Mandy's voice cracked. "Wait, what? That's it? You're just leaving?" I stopped halfway through the crowd and turned, making sure everyone could see how calm I was. "What did you expect? You just broke up with me." Her face dropped. The performance mask was slipping. "But don't you want to talk about this? Work things out?" I tilted my head. "Work what out? You said you don't think this is working. I respect that." Gigi and Addie exchanged panicked glances, their phones still out but lowered now. This wasn't the content they wanted. From the corner, someone muttered, "Dude, aren't you gonna fight for her? Try to change her mind?" I looked toward the voice and smiled. "Fight for what exactly?" She made her choice. "I'm not going to beg someone to be with me who doesn't want to be. That's not love. That's desperation." A ripple went through the room. People whispering, nodding. some even smirking. You could feel the shift. Mandy's face turned red. She glanced desperately at her crew for backup. Gigi stepped forward, voice shaky. Mandy, just tell him how you really feel. I raised an eyebrow. She did. She said it's not working, and she's ending it. That's pretty clear. Addie jumped in, her tone shrill. All couples go through rough patches. This is normal. You just need to try harder to make her happy. You're her boyfriend. This isn't a rough patch, I said, my voice still calm but sharp enough to cut glass. This is her staging a public breakup. That's not communication. That's manipulation. You could feel the discomfort spreading across the crowd. Guests were whispering things like, "What the hell is this? And who does that?" Mandy's panic finally cracked through. You're being so immature about this, Martin. I let out a short laugh. Immature? For respecting your words instead of causing a scene? No, Mandy. Immature is needing a whole audience to validate your relationship decisions. That one hit. People murmured in agreement. Her friends looked like deer in headlights. Alice, the wannabe mastermind, made a last-ditch attempt. She just wanted to see if you cared enough to fight for her. That's all this was about. The room went silent again. Even the music felt like it had dropped a beat. I looked straight at Alice, then back at Mandy. So let me get this straight. You broke up with me in front of everyone just to test if I'd beg you not to. That's what this was? Alice froze. Mandy's face drained of color. I smirked, leaned back slightly, and let my words drop like a hammer. Funny thing. I overheard you four rehearsing this whole circus act in the bathroom earlier. The part where you'd surround the room, where Gigi would film, where Addie wanted captions for Instagram. Ringing any bells? Gigi's phone disappeared behind her back so fast it almost made me laugh. Too late. Everyone had seen it. The murmurs turned into full-on disgust. That's so messed up. Who even does that? Psychotic. Mandy's eyes welled up, but I didn't buy it for a second. She wasn't crying because she was sorry. She was crying because her little show got canceled mid-performance. I looked around the room, at all the people watching, and then back at Mandy. My voice was low but carried. The breakup you staged for entertainment? It's real now. And then I turned and walked straight to the door. Behind me, I heard Mandy's shaky voice crack again. Martin, wait, please. But I didn't stop. The only thing I felt was satisfaction. She wanted a performance. She just got the finale. And she was the only one who didn't know the script. The night air hit me as I pushed open Owen's front door. Cool, clean, quiet compared to the suffocating silence inside. I figured that was the end of it. She staged the play. I flipped the ending. Curtain closed. But of course, Mandy wasn't done. Martin! Her heels clicked against the driveway like gunshots as she stormed after me. Gigi, Addie, and Alice trailed behind, whispering like backup dancers who suddenly forgot the routine. I stopped by the edge of the lawn and turned, hands in my pockets, calm as ever. She came charging up, face twisted with fury, not sadness. You made me look stupid in there, she hissed. You were supposed to fight for me. I raised an eyebrow. You break up with me in front of half our friends, and I made you look stupid? Yes, she snapped, voice cracking. Any real man would have begged me to stay. You just walked away like you don't care. I almost laughed. So, let me get this straight. You humiliated me in front of everyone to test me, and now you're mad I didn't perform to your script? I shook my head. Mandy, that's not how relationships work. That's how reality TV works. Her eyes flashed, and for a second I thought she might actually try to slap me. Instead, she tossed her hair and gestured toward the door, like she had backup waiting. And right on cue, Tallboy swaggered out. The same guy she'd been leaning all over earlier. Maybe she just needed someone better than you, he said, stepping closer. His tone was casual, but his eyes were locked on me like he thought he'd already won. I smirked. Better, huh? Bold talk for a guy whose only accomplishment tonight is being Plan B. The crowd that had followed outside chuckled. Mandy, embarrassed, doubled down. She wrapped her arm around Tallboy's and said loudly, Exactly. He is better, in every way, smarter, stronger. And unlike you, he actually fights for me. The smugness on her face was almost cartoonish. She thought this was her comeback moment. Then it happened. Better than who? A furious voice cut through the air. Every head turned as a brunette in jeans and a leather jacket marched up the driveway. Her eyes were locked on Tallboy like daggers. The color drained from his face. Amber, wait! No, she snapped, voice sharp enough to slice through concrete. Don't you wait me! I knew you were lying. You said you were going out with the guys and I had a feeling something was off, so I followed you. And here you are. Snuggling up to her? She jabbed a finger at Mandy, who froze mid-smirk. The driveway exploded with whispers. People were pulling out their phones again, not to film me this time, but to record this. Mandy recovered first, trying to plaster on some dignity. "Excuse me, who even are you?" Amber shot her a glare that could melt steel. "His girlfriend. The one he's been with for 2 years." "Who are you? The desperate side project?" The crowd roared with laughter and gasps. Mandy's face went pale, then red. Tallboy stammered, holding his hands up. "Amber, listen, it's not like that." "Oh, it's exactly like that," she snapped, stepping closer. "I caught you. You're done." Mandy turned on him, furious. "You said you wanted me." He backed away, panicked. "I never—" The whole scene collapsed into chaos. Mandy yelling at him, Amber yelling at both of them, Tallboy trying to talk over the noise. The party guests circled like sharks around Chum, eating up every second of the meltdown. Me? I just stood there, hands still in my pockets, watching the circus I had no intention of joining. Mandy looked like she might actually collapse. Her grand performance had turned into an absolute train wreck. I decided that was my cue. "You wanted a show, Mandy?" I said, stepping back toward the street. "Enjoy your new co-star." Then I turned and walked away. Behind me, the chaos kept raging, Mandy and Amber screaming over each other, Tallboy trying to salvage his dignity, party guests recording the whole disaster. But I didn't care. I wasn't part of it anymore. By the time I reached my car, the shouting was fading into the distance. I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove off without looking back. Mandy wanted me on my knees. Instead, she ended up on a driveway, fighting over a guy who couldn't even keep his lies straight, while the whole world laughed. And me? I'd never felt freer. That night, I slept like a rock. No tossing, no wondering if I'd done the right thing. Just silence. And the kind of peace you don't realize you've been missing until it finally shows up. By morning, my phone looked like it had been set on fire. Dozens of texts, missed calls, notifications from every corner of my social circle. At the top of the pile? Mandy. The progression was textbook. First, the apologies. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Please call me." Then came the bargaining. "Let's just take a break, not a breakup. I'll cut off Gigi, Addie, and Alice for you." Then the anger. "Wow. So you're just going to throw away everything like it was nothing?" Cold. I didn't respond to a single one. Silence speaks louder than any words could. By noon, mutual friends started sending me screenshots. Turns out Mandy and her little crew had a group chat dedicated to mocking me before the party. Bets even. Gigi had put $20 on me lasting less than 5 minutes before begging Mandy back. Addie said I'd definitely cry. And Alice claimed I'd end up promising Mandy a vacation just to keep her. Reading it didn't even sting. It just made me laugh. They really thought I was built like that? What did sting, though, was seeing a familiar name in the chat. Mark. A guy I'd considered a friend. He wasn't actively hyping it, but he knew. He knew the plan and never gave me a heads up. Didn't even try to pull me aside. Just sat back, waiting for the fireworks. That's what burned. Because Mark wasn't just some acquaintance. This was a guy I'd bailed out more times than I could count. When his car broke down at 2 a.m. last winter, I drove across town in the freezing cold to jump his battery. When he was short on rent, I spotted him cash so he wouldn't get kicked out. Hell, I even covered for him at work once when he screwed up a project deadline, lying to our boss so he didn't take the heat. And here he was, sitting in a group chat, watching my girlfriend and her toxic friends plot to humiliate me, and he couldn't be bothered to shoot me a simple warning. Not a call, not a text, nothing. That's not just silence. That's betrayal dressed up as loyalty. I sent him one message. "We're done. Lose my number." No explanation. He didn't deserve one. By the afternoon, Mandy shifted into damage control mode. I started hearing from people that she was spinning the story. Martin was distant. There was no spark. Martin stopped trying. She had no choice but to test him because he didn't appreciate her. Classic. Rewrite the script when the ending doesn't fit your fantasy. But then she got desperate. And desperation makes people stupid. Around 6 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A buddy of mine sent me a screenshot of Mandy's Instagram story. My face dropped when I opened it. Not from shock, but from pure disbelief at how idiotic it was. It was a picture of me in a dimly lit bar, sitting close to some girl I didn't even recognize. Except it wasn't real. The lighting was all wrong. My hands looked like something out of a video game, and the girl's face had that plasticky blur you only see in cheap AI edits. Caption: "Funny how he says I embarrassed him, but he's been cheating this whole time." I actually laughed out loud. She really thought this was going to work. Within minutes, the comments rolled in. "Girl, that's literally AI. Look at the hands. Why's his ear melted? Mandy, please, this is embarrassing for you. This is why I hate AI. It enables delusional people. It backfired instantly. People weren't buying her victim act anymore. If anything, she just handed me more credibility. She went from manipulative to desperate to delusional in the span of 48 hours. By the next morning, the story was gone. Deleted like it never happened. But screenshots don't disappear. And everyone had them. Sunday afternoon, the knock came. I opened the door to find Mandy standing there, eyes swollen, holding a bag like she'd been camping out on my doorstep. She looked nothing like the girl who strutted around Owen's party like a queen. Martin, please, she whispered. I just need 5 minutes. I leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. 5 minutes for what? To lie some more? To tell me that picture was real? Her face crumpled. I don't know why I did that. I was panicking. I didn't want people to think I was the bad guy. I shook my head. You didn't want people to think you were the bad guy, so you made a fake picture of me cheating? That's not panic, Mandy. That's insanity. She started crying harder. I messed up, okay? I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. I'll change. I let the silence hang for a beat. Then I said calmly, the trust is dead, Mandy. You killed it the second you turned our relationship into a performance. You buried it when you tried to frame me as a cheater. There's no fixing that. Her tears turned to anger in an instant. So that's it? 8 months together, and you're just walking away? I met her glare without flinching. I'm not walking away, Mandy. I'm shutting the door you already slammed. The difference is, I'm not reopening it. She stared at me, trembling, searching for something to say that would turn it around. But there was nothing left, just silence. Finally, she dropped the bag at her feet. These are some of your things, she mumbled. I don't want them anymore. I nodded once. Good call. Then I closed the door. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there for a full minute, hoping maybe I'd open it again. When I didn't, she finally turned and walked away. I picked up the bag later. A couple shirts, an old hoodie, random junk. It felt like a metaphor. Just scraps left from something that used to matter, now reduced to trash at my door. That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't the one who lost anything. Mandy was. And she knew it. The funny part about messes like this? They don't stay private. People talk, screenshots fly, videos surface. And in 2025, once it's out there, you can't reel it back in. By Monday, my phone buzzed with a text from a coworker. Bro, check TikTok. I opened the link. My face stared back at me in grainy vertical video. Mandy's voice rang out, I don't think this is working anymore. The clip cut right after my response. You're absolutely right. Then ended. No context. No explanation. Just me looking cold, dismissive, heartless. The comments were brutal. Damn, he didn't even fight for her. He just got dumped like this? This is so embarrassing, LMAO. He's definitely cheating. Look at how fast he bailed. And at the top, Gigi's account name. Of course. Mandy's little entourage couldn't beat me in person, so they tried editing the narrative online. For about 12 hours, it worked. My phone lit up with random DMs, strangers clowning me, people I barely knew messaging. Dude, what happened? Even a couple family members reached out. But then Owen stepped in. Tuesday morning, he posted the full uncut video. He'd grabbed the whole thing off his living room cam and stitched in clips people airdropped him from their phones. Everything from Mandy's big entrance speech to my calm responses to Alice's slip about it being a test to me exposing the bathroom rehearsal. All of it. His caption was brutal. Funny how context changes things. And within hours, the internet flipped. Hard. The same people who'd been mocking me were now roasting Mandy. Gigi's clip started getting duetted with Owen's. Side by side, the contrast made them look like fools. Comments tore into her. Why would you even post half the story? Lying by omission is still lying. By Wednesday, Mandy's whole crew was radioactive. Alice's boyfriend dumped her after seeing how deep she was in the scheme. People at Addie's office screenshotted her egging Mandy on and spread it around. Her boss actually had to pull her aside for professional conduct concerns. And Gigi? She tried doubling down, saying, it was just a joke. Everyone tests their partners. That earned her a week-long flame session across Instagram. The best part? I didn't lift a finger. The truth did all the work. Owen just gave it a megaphone. Mandy, though? She couldn't handle it. She went dark for a couple days. No posts, no stories, nothing. Then she came back with some dramatic black background text post. Be careful who you trust. Not everyone has your best interest at heart. The comments ratioed her into oblivion. Girl, you set this up. Stop blaming everyone else. Lamau, you trusted Gigi more than your own boyfriend. Even people who used to defend her stopped. She became the cautionary tale, the don't be like Mandy example people whispered about at brunches. She did try to reach out to me again. Long email, paragraphs about how she realized now how toxic Gigi and Alice were, how she felt brainwashed by bad friends. She even claimed she'd cut them off completely. But here's the thing. Even if she really did, it didn't matter. Cutting weeds doesn't unpoison the soil. I didn't reply. She didn't deserve closure. By the end of that week, the fallout had spread so wide it stopped being just about her. Friends of friends knew. Coworkers of coworkers knew. At one point, someone I barely recognized at the gym clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Respect, man." Most guys would have folded. I just nodded. No need to brag. My silence and composure spoke louder than anything. The final nail came 2 weeks later at another mutual friends get-together. Mandy wasn't invited, but Gigi showed up, trying to act like nothing had happened. The room froze when she walked in. Nobody laughed at her jokes. Nobody engaged her fake small talk. Eventually, she left early, humiliated in her own way. That was the true cost of their little test. It didn't just cost Mandy her relationship. It cost all of them their reputations. Meanwhile, I walked out of it with my head high, my dignity intact, and, ironically, more respect from the same crowd that once laughed behind my back. It was poetic in a way. Mandy wanted a viral moment to prove her power. She got one. Just not the kind she could ever recover from. The fallout spread like cracks in glass. Mandy went quiet online. Gigi ghosted the entire friend group. Addie kept her head down at work. And Alice disappeared into the background like she'd never existed. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. Steady, calm, better than it had been in years. 8 months later, I was seeing someone new. Claire. Smart. Grounded. Funny. In a way that didn't feel like a performance. She didn't care about entrances or staged drama. She cared about actual conversations. She respected boundaries. She made life feel simple again. No hidden scripts, no tests, no backup plans. Of course, Mandy found out. I don't know if someone told her or if she stalked her way through tagged photos, but one night, my phone lit up with her name again. I hadn't seen it in months. Against my better judgment, I opened the messages. It started calm enough. "So you've already moved on." Then, "I knew you'd do this. I knew you'd cheat on me eventually." Then, "You probably planned this while we were still together. Admit it." Cheat? The word made me laugh out loud. I typed back one line. Cheat? We're not together. You ended that the night you staged a breakup for Instagram. The response came instantly. "You're lying. You were probably talking to her the whole time." No one moves on that fast unless they were planning it. I didn't bother explaining how life works when you cut toxicity out. People like Mandy don't want truth. They want fuel for their delusions. So I replied, "Get over it. You made your choice. I'm not your boyfriend. Haven't been for almost a year." That's when she cracked. The texts poured in. Walls of accusations, apologies mid-sentence, anger flipping into begging, then back again. "I loved you more than anyone. You'll regret this when she cheats on you too. You owe me after everything I put into us. I was the best thing that ever happened to you." I didn't reply. I put my phone on the counter and kept cooking dinner with Claire. But Mandy wasn't done. The next day, she showed up at my apartment. I knew the knock before I even opened the door. She looked like a ghost of herself. Hair messy, eyes wild, like she hadn't slept in days. "You replaced me," she said flatly. I crossed my arms. "No. You replaced yourself when you tried to humiliate me in front of everyone we know." Her lip curled. "She's not better than me." I smirked. Funny. She doesn't need to be better. She just needs to not be you. That one hit like a bullet. Her face twisted, and for a second I thought she'd scream. Instead, she lunged into rapid-fire delusion. "You knew you'd end up with her. Admit it. You probably wanted me gone so you could be with her. That's why you didn't fight for me. That's why you embarrassed me." I shook my head. "You embarrassed yourself, Mandy. And now you're trying to rewrite history to make it my fault. That's not how this works." Her voice went shrill. "You cheated. I know you did." I leaned against the doorframe, calm as ever. "Cheating requires being in a relationship. We haven't been in one since you made our breakup a spectator sport. You need to get over your delusions." She froze, shaking, hands balled into fists. "I did it because I loved you," she whispered, voice breaking. "I just wanted to know if you loved me enough to fight for me." I sighed. "No, Mandy. You did it because you loved the control. You loved the drama. You loved the idea of people watching me crawl for you. That's not love. That's power." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I didn't budge. I'd seen those tears before, and they weren't about regret. They were about losing control. Finally, I ended it. Go home, Mandy. Whatever you thought we had died months ago. I'm not the guy who plays games for your entertainment. Find someone else to run your experiments on. I closed the door before she could answer. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there, trembling, then finally storm off down the hall. For the first time, she didn't look like the center of attention. She just looked small. That was the last time I saw her. Word around the circle was that she tried dating a few guys after me. But nothing stuck. Too many people knew her reputation. The test your man girl, the staged breakup girl, the one who faked AI photos to frame her ex. Me? I kept living. Work was good. My circle got tighter. And Claire? She laughed when I told her the whole story one night. Her only comment was, anyone who thinks love needs testing doesn't understand it in the first place. Mandy thought she was testing my love. What she really tested was my self-respect. And I passed while she lost everything. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Story 6. When I proposed, my GF looked me dead in the eyes and laughed. You thought I'd marry you? Then I found out my best friend had been stealing my work while screwing her behind my back. I didn't get mad. I only did this. Sup, Reddit. No intros, the title alone is a whole mind F, I know. So grab your snacks and enjoy. Also, read the whole thing because it only makes sense that way. I'm 25 male, and this shit show starts at UT Austin, naturally. Junior year, off-campus housing that was basically a glorified crack den with central air. Me and Fabien got stuck together because we were both too practical to blow money on the fancy dorms and too late to find anyone who wasn't completely insane. Fabien was this smooth-talking business major who could convince professors to extend deadlines just by showing up to office hours with coffee. Hey, doctor. Miller, I've been wrestling with the philosophical implications of your assignment all week. Meanwhile, I'm the guy who actually fixed everyone's busted AC units with YouTube tutorials and a clearance toolbox. We shared an old pickup and did our own repairs. Blue-collar weekends, early gym, DIY projects, helping friends move. Seemed like the perfect friendship. I handled anything that required actual skills. He handled anything that required bullshit. The summer before Meredith, my girlfriend, entered the picture, we built my dad's workshop in Bastrop. He'd bought all the materials, but had zero clue how to assemble them into something functional. Fabienne and I showed up with a borrowed circular saw and enough confidence to be dangerous. It took 4 weekends, probably twice as long as it should have, but we got it done. He insisted on taking a completion photo, like we were contractors instead of 2 college grads with splinters and heat exhaustion. Our first construction project, he called it, posing with his arms crossed while wearing safety glasses he'd forgotten to remove, and a cap backwards. You know how when you think about it, then realize the small things you'd missed? To me, I should have noticed how Fabien always made everything about our achievements when it came time for credit. Let me tell you how. 3 months later, Fabien posted that photo on LinkedIn with the caption, "Proud of this build, leadership and problem solving in action." Posted it like he'd project manage the whole thing, instead of mostly holding boards while I figured out why nothing was square. I spotted it because there was this one joist in the background that I'd had to realign after Fabien had installed it wrong. You could see my custom shim wedged in there, something only I would recognize. Our work, his narrative. The pattern had started early in college. Group projects where he would handle client relations while I coded everything. He'd show up to presentations wearing a blazer, talking about our innovative approach and strategic implementation. Professors ate it up. Fabien got leadership recognition. I got debugging sessions that lasted until 3 a.m. Sophomore year, our database design course required a final project worth 40% of our grade. He suggested we build an inventory management system for his uncle's auto parts store. Real-world application, he said. Professors love that shit. I spent 3 weeks building a clean interface with search functionality, barcode integration, and automated reorder alerts. Fabien showed up twice. Once to take measurements at the store, once to test user experience by clicking through finished screens. When presentation day came, he wore a freaking tie and talked about stakeholder engagement and agile methodology, while I sat there knowing every line of code by heart. Professor Wayne asked technical questions about database normalization. Fabien deflected with business buzzwords until I had to jump in with actual answers. Got an A on the project. He got invited to the dean's reception for innovative student entrepreneurs. That should have been my wake-up call right there. Even our senior capstone project followed the same script. I built a financial tracking app for small businesses while he created PowerPoint slides about market penetration strategies. Guess who got invited to present at the business school's innovation showcase? Hint, it wasn't the guy who actually wrote the code. But back then, I figured that's just how teams worked. Some people build, some people sell. I was good with tools and logic. Fabienne was good with people and bullshit. Seemed complimentary. I was about to learn how wrong I was. Meredith showed up at a friend's pool party in July, when Austin was hot enough to melt asphalt. Quick wit, kept everyone entertained without trying too hard, and somehow managed to keep plants alive in Texas heat. She had this way of remembering details about people that made them feel important. Your dog's name, how you liked your coffee, what your weekend plans were. We clicked immediately. Not the movie bullshit where everything slows down and violins start playing. Just easy conversation that didn't feel like work. She roasted my choice in truck accessories within the first 15 minutes, which was honestly fair. I was still running stock everything because priorities. Those rims are giving bought it used from my uncle, she said, grinning over her drink. But the truck itself is solid. I respect that. Fabienne was there too, naturally. Spent most of the party working the crowd like he was running for office, making sure everyone knew he just landed an internship at a downtown consulting firm. 2 years in, we were doing the normal relationship progression. Shared Netflix password, his and hers coffee makers, shoes by the door like functioning adults. We'd talk about neighborhoods we wanted to live in eventually, what breed of dog we'd get, whether granite or quartz was worth the extra cost. Basic future planning that felt natural instead of forced. She had opinions about everything, which I actually liked. Everything was a project that could be optimized. You enable my overthinking, she told me one night while we were assembling IKEA furniture. Most guys just want to follow the directions. You actually listen when I explain why the instructions are wrong. Meeting her dad was like interviewing for security clearance. Dude had a handshake that could crack walnuts, and the kind of stare that made you wonder if your shirt was buttoned wrong. But he eventually warmed up. Gave me the straightforward, she's got expensive taste, hope you're prepared talk, while we were manning the grill at a family barbecue. Her mom was more subtle but equally calculating. During that same barbecue, she pulled out her phone to show me photos of Meredith's sister's wedding. Look at this venue. 12 grand just for the reception hall, but absolutely worth it. Victoria looked like a princess. Then she'd glance at my truck in the driveway. I'm sure you and Meredith will find something perfect when the time comes. The message was crystal clear. So I started picking up extra freelance work. Weekend app development, small business websites, anything that paid decent and didn't require me to wear pants to meetings. Saving for a ring, because she had mentioned once, casually, while we were window shopping at the Domain, that she thought traditional diamonds were basic. Everyone does diamonds, she'd said, stopping in front of a jewelry store display. Emeralds are more intentional. Shows you actually listen. The freelance grind was brutal. 40-hour day job, then another 20 hours of weekend projects. Had a simple Excel tracker with columns for billable hours, payment status, and ring fund progress. Target was $8,500 for the specific piece I'd found. Nights meant energy drinks and code reviews until 2 a.m., but every deposit felt like progress towards something permanent. Found this vintage emerald ring, Art Deco setting, from an estate sale in Round Rock. Cost me 6 months of weekend projects, but it was exactly what she'd described. Fabienne knew I was getting close to proposing. About damn time, he said when I showed him the ring, slapping my back like we'd just closed a business deal. The plan was simple. The same corner booth where we'd had our first real date, at this Italian place called Vespaio. But here's where things started getting interesting. The week before I planned to propose, Meredith started acting differently. Not suspicious, just entitled. Little comments that felt like tests. When we get married, we're definitely doing destination wedding. Probably Italy or somewhere with good food. My ring finger is a size 6, by the way, just in case you were wondering about it someday. She's teased. What do you mean? I asked. What? Nothing, though. Aren't we eventually getting married? She smiled with those innocent eyes. Of course. Like, see? She hugged me. I hope you're not planning anything cheesy, though. She joked. Fabienne had been acting weird, too, asking questions about my big plans with this knowing smirk, like he was in on some joke I wasn't getting. You nervous about Saturday? He'd asked the day before my planned proposal, which was strange because I'd never told him the specific date. Should I be nervous? Just saying, big decisions and all. Want to make sure you're ready for the changes. At the time, I figured he was being a supportive brother. Saturday night at Vespaio, the same corner booth we'd claimed 2 years ago. Meredith showed up wearing that Instagram-ready look. outfit that probably cost more than my truck payment, but somehow looked effortless. Phone face down on the table. I waited until after we'd ordered, when the conversation hit that comfortable pause where couples can just exist without filling every second with chatter. The waiter had cleared our appetizer plates, refilled water glasses, and disappeared back to the kitchen. Perfect timing window. That's when I moved the ring box next to her water glass. A small black velvet box that had been burning a hole in my jacket pocket for 3 days. Before dessert, I said, keeping my voice steady. She looked at the box like I'd just placed a dead roach on her bread plate. Not surprise, not excitement, genuine confusion mixed with annoyance. The couple at the next table went completely silent, probably already composing their group chat updates about the drama they were about to witness. She got silent for like 20 seconds. My breathing stayed controlled. I was waiting for the inevitable yes, you know? Then, I shit you not, she looked me dead in the eyes, scoffed, and spit the words. Seriously? You thought I'd marry you? The emphasis on you hit like a slap. Around us, conversations paused. Silverware stopped clinking. Even the background music seemed to drop a decibel. But here's what she said next, and this is where it gets nuclear. I mean, no offense, you're sweet and all, but you're more like my placeholder boyfriend, until I figure out what I actually want. Placeholder boyfriend. In front of a packed restaurant, said with the casual cruelty of someone ordering a salad. I sat there for exactly 3 seconds, processing the fact that I'd just been demoted to human bookmark status. Then I picked up the ring box and stood up. Thanks for clarifying, I said. The entire restaurant was watching now. Some old guy at the bar actually leaned forward to get a better view. Our server approached with dessert menus, saw the situation, and retreated back to the kitchen. Walked out while she was still sitting there with her mouth open, probably calculating whether following me would cause more or less of a scene. Got to my truck, drove straight home, activated my 48-hour processing protocol. No major decisions, no emotional responses, just systematic reset. Did 3 loads of laundry and reorganized my garage. Movement helped. Thinking didn't help, so I avoided it completely. Changed all my streaming passwords, reviewed my bank account access, cleared browser history. Basic digital hygiene when your life just took an unexpected turn. The next morning, she texted, "Look, the way you left me alone at the restaurant was a jerk move, okay? I had to pay for the dinner myself. Also, I need space to think. Don't make this complicated." The nerve she got. And she needed space. Like I was some clingy ex instead of the guy who just offered her forever and got called a placeholder for my trouble. Fine. Space was my specialty. But she wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting warmed up. Monday, she showed up at my duplex with her sister and 2 friends, like she was leading a moving crew. Didn't ask if it was convenient, just announced they were there to collect her things. I held the door, helped carry boxes, acted like a decent human being despite wanting to change the locks while they were still on the porch. She left my spare key on the kitchen counter, next to a note that said, "Thanks for everything. You'll make someone very happy someday." The condescension was thick enough to spread on toast. Her sister Victoria gave me this look like I'd somehow failed the family. "Meredith's been stressed lately. Maybe you pushed too hard. Too fast." "Maybe," I said, loading their car with stuff I'd helped buy. After they left, my duplex felt like mine again. No background reality TV, no hair straightener permanently plugged into the bathroom outlet, no second coffee mug in the sink every morning. Just me and my stuff, and the kind of quiet that makes you realize how much noise another person adds to your world. Should have been peaceful, would have been, if Meredith had just disappeared into whatever life she thought she deserved. Instead, things got creative and clear. 2 weeks and 3 days of radio silence. I'd gotten back into my routine. Gym, work, meal prep, Netflix shows Meredith had always vetoed as too violent. I was even considering updating my dating profiles just to see what had changed since college. Then my phone exploded at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. Screenshots from 4 different people, all showing the same Instagram story from some rooftop bar downtown. There she was, tucked into Fabien's shoulder, his hand on her waist with the confidence of someone who definitely practiced this angle before. The location tag showed a downtown rooftop spot, the same area where I'd taken her for her birthday 8 months ago. But the caption made me want to throw my phone into Lady Bird Lake. Sometimes your soulmate was right there all along. So grateful for real love. Authentic Zwacker second chances. My college buddy called within minutes. "Dude, you seeing this Instagram bullshit?" "Yep. Want me to drive over? Bring drinks and questionable life advice?" "I'm good. Thanks, though." The timing felt coordinated, like they'd planned the reveal for maximum impact, rather than letting anything develop naturally. Then Fabien texted, Hey bro, we need to talk. I stared at those 4 words for about an hour. 4 words that somehow contained 5 years of friendship, a rejected proposal, and whatever the hell this rooftop situation was supposed to represent. Left it on read and went to bed. But the universe wasn't finished screwing with me yet. Next morning, work email in my inbox with a subject line that made my breakfast taste like cardboard. Q3 Innovation Showcase, Austin Municipal Reporting System by Fabian Caruso. The timing wasn't coincidental. Rooftop reveal Thursday night, showcase announcement Friday morning. Here's the thing. I'd been building a clean municipal incident reporting system for the city of Austin for 6 months, working nights and weekends. Only 3 people knew about it. My contact at the city, who'd signed an NDA, my manager Steve, who wasn't the gossiping type, and Fabien, because I'd mentioned it during one of our regular sessions of complaining about bureaucratic technology. My coworker Derek was at the coffee machine when I walked into the break room. Yo, saw the showcase announcement. Fabien finally finished that project he's been bragging about? Apparently. Weird timing though, right? Thought he was working on some CRM integration. Derek was one of those guys who noticed everything, but kept his observations casual. Database administrator with the attention to detail of a forensic accountant. If he was picking up inconsistencies, other people probably were too. Plus, municipal systems aren't really his wheelhouse. That's more your kind of work. Database optimization, user interface design, back-end architecture. Pattern recognition wasn't advanced mathematics. But I needed proof before I did anything that couldn't be undone. I'd hidden a unique identifier in my code's documentation, a specific phrase buried in a comment that only I would know to look for. Infrastructure, redundancy cascade protocols. Sounded official enough that nobody would question it. Specific enough that it couldn't be coincidental. Call it a digital fingerprint with professional manners. The afternoon brought an email from Steve, my manager. Fabien mentioned you might have some insights for his municipal project. Could you review his documentation before the showcase? The audacity was breathtaking. Fabien wanted me to help him present my own work. I replied immediately, happy to attend the showcase and provide feedback afterward. But wait, there was more. Remember those logo designs I'd made for Meredith's personal brand 6 months back? Vector files, color schemes, social media templates, about 30 hours of free work because I was being a supportive boyfriend. Those same designs were now all over her Instagram, cropped and resized, but unmistakably my work. Zero credit, naturally. File metadata told the whole story. Original Illustrator files created on my home computer, artboard dimensions of 1080 by 1080 for Instagram specs, creation dates that lined up perfectly with when she'd asked for just a quick logo. She'd even started selling lifestyle coaching services using my designs as her business identity. Website, business cards, the whole package. My work, her profit. Her business website had launched 2 weeks after she'd called me a placeholder. Coincidence? Unlikely. The pattern was becoming crystal clear. Take, rebrand, profit. Both of them had graduated summa cum laude from the same school of what's yours is mine. I spent the weekend creating a master timeline that connected everything. Fabien's questions, my responses, project milestones, his sudden presentation announcement, their relationship reveal. Saturday morning brought another revelation. I was reviewing old text messages when I found something that made my coffee taste like battery acid. March 20th. Meredith asking casual questions about my work projects. March 20th. Fabien asking technical questions about municipal systems. Same freaking day. Either they were psychically connected, or they'd been coordinating information gathering from the beginning. Digging deeper into my message history revealed more patterns. Throughout April, Meredith had been unusually interested in my weekend work schedule. You're always coding lately. What's got you so focused? She'd ask while I was debugging late-night issues. Meanwhile, Fabien was asking technical questions that lined up perfectly with project milestones only I would know about. April 15th. Meredith mentions she might need technical consulting for her business ideas. April 19th. Fabien asks about database security protocols for government systems. And so on. They'd been tag-teaming information extraction for weeks, maybe months. Every casual conversation had been reconnaissance. Monday morning, I made 3 phone calls that would change the entire game. First call, Elena, intellectual property attorney. She was the kind of lawyer who spoke in bullet points and charged like she knew her worth. Here's the play, she said, after I'd walked through the situation. File formal complaints with your company's legal department and the city procurement office. No emotional fluff, just facts and documentation. For your ex-girlfriend, copyright infringement notices and licensing demand. For your friend and the city contract, cease and desist, return all materials, certify deletion, and if any of your work gets implemented, they pay licensing fees retroactively. My offer letter's inventions assignment carve-out said anything built on my own time, with my own gear, without company secrets, was mine. From that point forward, I communicated only through counsel about the dispute. Second call, James from Corporate Compliance. Turns out our company had a dedicated portal for exactly this type of intellectual property dispute. Category, unauthorized use of personal IP. Description, employee presented personal project as company innovation without permission, potentially exposing company to liability. Third call, Austin City Attorney's Office. Explain the situation to someone who sounded like they'd heard this song before. Submit your documentation to our procurement fraud hotline. If there's a pattern of misrepresentation, we take that seriously. By Monday morning, all 3 packets were submitted. By 10:30, I had confirmation emails. By 1:45, I was sitting in a small conference room with 2 people from HR and 1 from legal, answering straightforward questions about ownership and timeline. Did you create this system during work hours? No. Using company equipment? No. Were you authorized to share it with Mr. Caruso? No. The HR rep had been taking notes on a legal pad. Walk us through how Fabien obtained access to your code. I mentioned the project in casual conversation. General concept only. Never shared files, never granted access to repositories, never signed any collaboration agreements. I slid a USB drive across the table. Complete Git history, time-stamped commits, unique identifiers, hash verification. Everything's documented. 3:20 p.m. brought a second meeting invitation. Same conference room, but Fabien was already there when I walked in, looking like he'd rather be getting a root canal without anesthesia. HR guy cut straight to business. Fabien says you're withholding company resources and creating a hostile work environment. I kept my voice level. I filed an intellectual property complaint this morning regarding unauthorized use of my personal project. Happy to answer any questions about my conduct. Have you threatened Mr. Caruso? No. Attempted to damage his reputation? No. Share details of your complaint with other employees? No. Fabien was studying the table, like it might contain the answers to all his problems. When HR asked him to provide evidence of hostile behavior, he fumbled through his phone for texts that apparently didn't exist. He's been cold, unfriendly, won't collaborate on projects. She looked up from her notes. Collaboration isn't mandatory between peers unless assigned by management. Has he interfered with your work directly? No, but thank you. That's all we need for now. The legal guy had one more question for Fabien. Can you explain how you developed this municipal system without using any company resources or collaborating with anyone else? I researched best practices, used online tutorials, standard development process. In 6 weeks? I'm a fast learner. And the unique terminology in your documentation? Infrastructure redundancy cascade protocols? Fabien glanced at me, then back at legal. Industry standard terms. We'll be verifying that. After the meeting, he caught me in the parking lot. You're going to destroy both our careers over this. I looked at him standing next to his car, the one he'd somehow upgraded to a newer model while working the same job as me. You still got the nerve to talk to me, Fabien? You should have thought about that before you hit present. This is insane. We're friends. Get out of my sight. You'll have to deal with what's coming next. Oh, come on, dude. I'll make it right. Co-credit on everything. 50-50 split on any licensing. That's when I snapped. I grabbed him from the shirt and yanked in close. You have 2 options, I said coldly. Walk out of here or leave in pieces. That's when he knew I wasn't playing. He slowly left. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Return my ring or I tell everyone what kind of person you really are. You owe me compensation for emotional damages. 2 years of my life. Forwarded that to Elena immediately. Her response was 4 words. Extortion. This helps us. The next morning brought updates from multiple fronts. Derek stopped by my cube with coffee and information. Fabien got pulled into a meeting with the Architecture Review Board. They're asking technical questions about his municipal system that he can't answer, such as database schema design choices, why certain algorithms were selected, basic stuff if you actually wrote the code. The Architecture Review Board consisted of senior developers who could smell bullshit from 3 cubicles away. If Fabien was fielding technical questions about my code without preparation, this would get ugly fast. Meanwhile, the takedown notices hit. Meredith's Instagram business posts started disappearing, replaced by gray squares that said, "Content removed due to copyright violation." Her response was posted within the hour. Haters and legal bullies won't stop my success journey. The universe protects authentic energy. The comments section turned into a battlefield. Friends asking what happened, business contacts confused about the copyright issues, competitors probably taking notes for future reference. Her sister Victoria texted me directly. "What the hell did you do to Meredith? She's devastated. You need to stop it now." I forwarded that to Elena too. Everything was evidence now. Showcase day arrived with all the corporate theater you'd expect. Folding chairs arranged like a TED Talk for people who'd never had an original thought. Projector that hummed like it was personally offended by being turned on. Department heads in the back, checking their phones like they had somewhere more important to be. Fabien did his whole presentation confidently. Talked about streamlined municipal workflows and citizen-centric design philosophy. Got the room nodding along like dashboard dogs. The man could sell air conditioning to penguins. I sat in the third row, laptop open, taking notes that looked like professional feedback, but were actually evidence documentation. Timestamp, exact quotes, technical details he'd gotten right. My work, versus stuff he'd improvised, mostly bullshit. Sarah from QA leaned over during his database optimization slide. "This is really similar to your style. Did you collaborate on this?" "Just listening and learning," I said, typing another note about interface elements I'd designed in February. Then, he flashed the documentation screen for exactly 2 seconds while explaining the back-end architecture. And there it was, displayed on the projector for 45 city employees and contractors to see. Infrastructure redundancy cascade protocols. My exact phrase, buried in code I'd written at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, now being presented as Fabien's innovation. I took a photo with my phone, wrote the timestamp, and kept my expression neutral. Around me, people were applauding. Some director in the front row said, "This is exactly what Austin needs. When can we implement?" Fabien fielded questions about implementation timeline with the smooth confidence of someone who'd never actually deployed a database system. "We're looking at a phased rollout, beta testing with select departments, then full citywide deployment." "What about data migration from the legacy system?" asked someone from IT. "That's being handled by our backend specialists." Translation: "I have no damn clue." Derek caught me after the presentation. "That documentation comment, infrastructure redundancy cascade protocols, that's not standard terminology." "No, it's not. Sounds like something you'd write. Very specific." Derek wasn't fishing. He was stating facts. Interesting observation. Just saying. If I were building a case for anything, I'd probably start with unique identifiers like that. Message received. Even the database guys were connecting dots. That night, my kitchen table became command central. Started with a simple Google search for infrastructure redundancy cascade protocols. 0 results outside of my code. That phrase existed exactly once on the internet, in my repository. Local Git commits showed the exact timestamps when I'd written each section. SHA-256 hash of my complete project folder, zipped and archived. Proof of my work at specific dates that couldn't be faked or backdated. Digital signatures don't lie. Email analysis showed Fabien had started asking me technical questions about municipal databases 3 weeks after I'd mentioned the project to him. Innocent enough on the surface, but the questions were oddly specific. I'd answered like a helpful friend. He'd been taking notes like a competitor. The timeline was becoming crystal clear. 6 weeks from casual mention to corporate theft. The man was efficient, I'd give him that. Meanwhile, Meredith's business website had launched 2 weeks after she'd called me a placeholder. File metadata showed she'd been using my logo designs for commercial purposes without permission. The licensing demand was simple. Cease all unauthorized use immediately. Pay $3,500 in retroactive licensing fees for commercial usage. Deadline 72 hours from receipt. Wednesday afternoon, Fabien made his final tactical errors via text message. "Look, we can work this out. Co-developers on the project. I'll make sure you get credit and a promotion." 2 minutes later, "Keep pushing this, and I'll tell everyone you stole the code from a contractor we hired. Your word against mine." Both messages got forwarded to HR, legal, and Elena before I'd even finished reading them. Some people really don't understand the first rule of holes. When you're in one, stop digging. Elena called within an hour. "Your friend just destroyed any chance he had of claiming good faith collaboration. That second text constitutes witness intimidation and potentially criminal fraud. Threatening to make false statements to investigators is a felony in Texas. I'm forwarding this to the DA's office." The follow-up legal meeting was brief and professional. James sat in the corner taking notes while someone from corporate security explained that they couldn't discuss personnel actions, but my documentation had been thoroughly reviewed and action taken. The legal rep had an update. Mr. Caruso failed to provide adequate technical documentation for his project. The Architecture Review Board has recommended immediate suspension of all related development work. And the city contract? Being reviewed by the Procurement Fraud Division. We've suspended all municipal proposals pending investigation. Over the next 72 hours, 3 things happened in sequence. Fabien lost access to all shared folders containing my work. His project calendar went from packed to empty. He started parking in the back lot and using the side entrance like the main doors had a personal grudge against him. Elena called with updates. City killed the contract pending investigation. Your company scrubbed everything and wants to license the work for their internal use. For your ex, takedowns are processing, and we're demanding licensing fees for unauthorized commercial use. How much are we talking? Think 2 months' rent. Point isn't the money. It's establishing legal precedent and making sure this never happens again. Thursday morning, Steve scheduled a brief one-on-one. Fabien won't be working on client-facing projects for the foreseeable future. Internal systems development only. That's probably for the best. Legal wants to discuss licensing your municipal system through proper channels. Interested? The company wanted to buy what Fabien had tried to steal. Poetry in motion. Send me the paperwork. Friday evening, my doorbell rang at 8:30 p.m. Meredith stood there with shiny eyes. She's been rehearsing this conversation. We need to talk. You're talking. I made a mistake. I panicked at dinner. The whole thing scared me. Which part scared you? The proposal or calling me a placeholder? Or the way you announced how you've been screwing Fabien? Long pause. Then pivot to the victim strategy. But it's been 2 years together. I invested my prime dating years. You owe me something. I owe you nothing. Actually, I'm being too nice for letting you talk. Another pause. Fabien says you're trying to ruin his life because you can't handle that we found real love. Fabien presented my work to the city. I documented dates. Math isn't personal. She tried to look past me into the duplex, like maybe the old version of our relationship was hiding behind the couch, waiting to negotiate. The copyright thing is petty. Those designs were gifts. Gifts don't come with commercial licensing rights. You're being ridiculous. My attorney disagrees. That stopped her cold. I told her to leave, and she did. 20 minutes later, a friend DM'd me a screenshot of Meredith's latest Instagram story. Men who can't handle strong, successful women will always try to tear us down through the legal system. But diamonds are made under pressure. The irony was thick enough to build a bridge with it. Monday brought news that Fabien's department transfer had been finalized. He'd be working on internal inventory systems, basically digital filing cabinets that nobody outside the company would ever see. Career advancement equivalent of being sent to Siberia. The licensing check cleared that same day. I spent it on a professional-grade tool organization system with foam-cut inserts for every socket and wrench, then labeled everything down to the quarter-inch drivers. Felt like justice. Tuesday morning, Fabien was waiting by my truck when I came out for work. Envelope in hand, face like he'd been sleeping in his car for a week. I screwed up, he said. Yep, you did. Brother, please just give me a chance to speak. Let's grab some drinks and fix things calmly. Too late. And stop calling me brother, or I'll break your jaw. Everything was imploding in his life. Then came the text by the next week. Another bong, but honestly, I wasn't surprised. She played us both. I think she was seeing someone else the whole time. She's pregnant, and you are the only one who knows I don't make kids. It can't be mine. Yeah, Fabien is infertile, by the way. Things couldn't get any better. Turns out Meredith had left her laptop open at Fabien's place while she showered. He'd done some research, and the browser history revealed the rest. Gym trainer DMs, married co-worker from her marketing agency, some cowboy from Fredericksburg with a ranch and a trust fund. Brother, please. I need my friend back. She used both of us. He asked to come over that afternoon. I said fine. He showed up wearing our shared history. The UT hoodie I'd bought him for his birthday. Same beat-up work boots from when we'd built Dad's workshop. He looked around my garage like maybe his old toolbox was hiding somewhere, waiting for him to reclaim it. You know what she did to us, he said. We were both idiots. She played the long game. Let's reset. I grabbed 2 bottles from the garage fridge, opened them both, set one on my workbench in front of him. Then I pulled out my label maker, fed out a strip of tape, and stuck it on a clean shop rag. Accountability. Start here. Starting line, I said. College TV you never paid your half for. Cordless drill you borrowed and conveniently forgot during your move. Workshop plans you pitched to my dad like you designed them. My presentation templates. The municipal reporting system. You want a reset? Write a statement acknowledging you used my work without permission. Where it went, what happened to it. Sign it. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're serious? Dead serious. Bros don't make bros sign legal documents. Bros don't commit intellectual property theft. Also, bros don't choose hoes before bros, you know? He tried the nostalgia angle. Remember Galveston? Hotel parking lot? Ball joint replacement at midnight? Yeah, I said. We fixed it. We can fix this too. I slid a manila envelope across the workbench. Inside, his spare key from 2019 with a fresh label attached, access permanently revoked. He stared at it like it might transform back into friendship through sheer willpower. You're cold. I'm clear. I dictated exactly what had happened in clean, lawyer-friendly language. Full confession, unauthorized access, presentation of my work, complete timeline, deletion certification requirements. He typed like someone filling out their own arrest warrant. Send it to yourself, legal, HR, the city attorney's office, and me, I said. Send button, delivery confirmation, multiple copies hit inboxes within seconds. Okay, so we're good? Bros again? Forced smile, desperate hope. I let him have that moment. That tiny slice of relief where maybe we could go back to building workshops and fixing trucks. Let him believe it for exactly as long as it took me to slide one final item across the workbench. Printed screenshot of his "your word against mine" threat text, stapled directly to the confession he'd just typed and sent. Keep these together, I said. Before and after shots. His face did the math and absolutely hated the result. You set me up. You walked in asking for a reset. That's a reset. He stood up fast enough to knock over the bottle. Cold brew spread across concrete, forming a puddle that perfectly captured the mood. Just remember who you used to be, he said on his way out. I held up the envelope so the label faced him clearly. I remember exactly who I was. That's why you're leaving. Elena called Friday with final updates. Settlement on the logo licensing. She's paying the full amount plus legal fees. Total comes to about $4,000. And Fabien? Company handled it internally. He can't legally work on municipal contracts for any organization for 2 years. Non-compete addendum to his employment. 2 years in digital filing cabinet purgatory. Career suicide with a paper trail. One more thing, Elena added. His department transfer came with a 15% salary reduction. Apparently, internal inventory work pays less than client-facing development. Your company's not messing around. Fabian's LinkedIn profile disappeared 3 days later. Just gone. Professional social media to match his career prospects. Word travels fast in Austin's tech scene, especially when someone gets caught red-handed presenting stolen work to government clients. Derek texted me that same week. Fabien asked if I wanted to grab lunch yesterday. Told him I was busy, indefinitely. Even the database guys were cutting him off. The city contract came through the following week. 12-month engagement, my name on all documentation, licensing fees that would cover a down payment on something significant. Proper credit, proper compensation, proper respect for intellectual property. Elena also mentioned that Meredith's business website had gone dark. Hosting company received copyright complaints from multiple sources. Turns out she'd been using other people's work for more than just logos. Apparently, Meredith had built her entire personal brand on stolen intellectual property. Photos from photographers who'd never signed releases, written content from other coaches' websites, even testimonials copied from unrelated businesses. When lawyers started digging, they found a pattern of theft that made my logo situation look minor. She's facing potential charges for business fraud, Elena said. Using other people's work to generate revenue crosses, some lines that civil courts take seriously. After that night, I upgraded everything. Password rotation on all accounts, two-factor authentication on everything from email to streaming services, the works. New 3-word rule for all future dealings. Document. Verify. Act. The peace in my life wasn't lonely at all. It was earned. It's been 2 months since all this happened. Last I heard, Fabian is unemployed. Meredith is living off TikTok lives, where she bitches about loneliness and the suffering of single mothers. Still couching at her sister's. Had set up a GoFundMe too. Sucks to suck, you know. Some mistakes don't get fixed. They get you screwed.